He just woke up after being betrayed and murdered by his own sister, and when he checked the date, it was the year 2025. 9 years before his death, he had returned to the exact day the world changed that year. A new game called God's Domain 1 had shaken the world. When you fall asleep, you would actually enter this game. And in that world, your lifespan is everything. Lose it and you die, but if you're strong enough, you can bring your in-game powers into the real world, and soon after, the world descended into chaos. Monsters roamed the streets, cities collapsed, and only the strongest survived. Back then, our main character, Chinfong, was one of the top players in the world, and he risked everything to protect his sister. But she and her boyfriend betrayed him for the Judge's Eye, a divine artifact that could grant godlike powers. Now, reborn before it all began, Chinfong would not make the same mistake. This time, he was playing for himself. At the class selection hall, he chose the assassin class. And in that very moment, the Judge's Eye reawakened, granting him a hidden class that no one had ever seen before, Shadow Assassin. With this new power, he decided to test it out, entering Seashell Town. It was a safe zone with no monsters, where players couldn't attack each other. Some people around seemed confused, as if they were new players. While others were curious about the Shadow Assassin, they tried to figure out his class and guessed he was an assassin. He decided that if he wanted to get ahead, he couldn't waste time waiting. He went outside and found a party that had been nearly wiped out by monsters. The players had lost almost all their lifespan trying to deal with the monsters. Our boy noticed one of them had a hidden class. She asked the Shadow Assassin if he wanted to party up with them. Since they couldn't handle the monsters alone and already had experience, they asked. However, our hero refused and decided to go solo. The archers warned him about the monsters, saying they were too dangerous, but he went to fight alone anyway. Seeing him go solo, the archers decided to follow him. They were curious about his skills and perhaps hoped to gather some new information about the monsters, or maybe even just to watch him die. Lizzie didn't know why she was in this game, but with her years of experience in online gaming, she quickly formed a party. And yet, the first monster they encountered outside the beginner village wiped them out, but our boy easily defeated that same monster. The party now realized there was something unusual about the Shadow Assassin, his outfit, his dagger skills, and his agility. Nothing about him resembled a level 1 player. While they continued to watch him, he vanished into thin air. They realized it must have been a stealth skill, but either way, it was a bit too overpowered for level 1. They had already died once, and their remaining lifespan was halved, so they returned to the village to look for hidden rewards. A regular assassin's stealth skill at this level would be easily detected, but the Shadow Assassin class has the unique Stealth Master passive, making it impossible for anyone, even monsters, to notice him. The Shadow Assassin's stealth duration isn't very long, but the good thing is, the cooldown starts the moment he activates stealth. So in a few seconds, he can vanish again. All players start with base stats of 10. With different classes getting bonus points, Chinfeng's warrior class in his past life only got a 3-point bonus, to strength and constitution, but this time, the Shadow Assassin class boosts every stat, and his agility stat gets an 8-point boost, but he still has 5 points to distribute. And while most players dump points into strength or spirit to increase physical or magical power, he knows better. The Shadow Assassin knows that agility is the key, because the only way to kill monsters without taking damage is to increase agility and speed. Our boy finds a monster reptile still absorbing lifespan to evolve, and he realizes, it must be the one that wiped out that 4-person party. He delivers a finishing blow to the monster reptile. To his own surprise, the backstab skill, stacked with various other skills, multiplied the damage, making it easy to kill the monster reptile in a single hit. When he played as a warrior, even a critical hit only dealt 40 damage, and he struggled to kill a single monster reptile. Our main character absorbs the lifespan. It should have been over 100 years, but since the monster reptile had already absorbed it, he only got 54 years. For killing the monster alone, he received the Infinite Evolution talent. Every 24 hours, he would get 5 evolution points. In his past life, the rank of equipment or skill books was fixed, and there was no way to improve it. He then used his evolution points to upgrade Shadow Cloak and Backstab. Shadow Cloak can now last for 16 seconds, and combined with Stealth Master, it's doubled to 32. With this duration, he can even maintain permanent stealth. As our hero continues through the forest, he finds a few people standing around, but above them, he notices a mother body, so he goes into stealth again. The mother body is a beginner boss with about 1600 HP, and it has small spiders under its command. It's not something a newbie could handle. However, this is the perfect opportunity for him to test his upgraded skills. He now lunges in to attack the mother body and successfully deals over 300 HP in damage. Thanks to his high agility stat, he is able to dodge the attack. Otherwise, he would have been killed instantly. However, these monsters are very smart and won't just stand still. It tries to locate him and puts its spiders on high alert, so now he has to be careful with ambush attacks while stealthed. With attack bonuses and class skill enhancements, Even throwing a rock at a monster deals special damage. So, all he needs to do is wait for Shadow Cloak's cooldown, then throw a rock, which will trigger an ambush attack. It gets bonuses from backstab and hitting a weak point, then he can activate stealth again. And wait for the cooldown, then repeat until the monster is defeated. This updates the leaderboards, and it shows he is the first person to reach level 2 after defeating the mother body. Other players are amazed at the solo boss kill, as they are still trying to figure out the game. And someone has already soloed a boss. The 4-person party recognizes the main character and thinks it must be a glitch, because they couldn't even handle a regular mob as a team, yet he soloed a boss. The moment the big spider dies, all the small spiders scatter, and the shadow assassin realizes he should have killed them first for more experience. He's surprised when it drops the greedy hand skill book. He didn't expect a bronze level boss to drop this god tier assassin skill. This skill significantly increases item drops in the late game. When taking down powerful bosses, there's a 20% chance to get an extra item. In his past life, there was one person who had this skill, and it made him the most sought-after player. However, even though the activation rate is only 20%, if our boy combines it with his infinite evolution talent, it means he can infinitely boost both the drop rate and the number of items. Xiao Ru's friend advises her to call her brother and apologize, because they skipped their exam to secretly support Song Fei, and her brother must be furious. However, our boy's sister refuses, believing she did nothing wrong. She thinks her brother is the one who should apologize to her for always meddling in her affairs. When they go to investigate the crowd around the classroom, they see Zhang Wei turning translucent. One of the classmates explains that he just wanted to take a nap, and then he became like that. However, this isn't an isolated case. It's been happening all over the world. Some experts say that as long as people fall asleep, they will enter a translucent state, like ghosts, and no one knows why. Xiao Ru's friend says she's calling her family to let them know. She suggests our hero's sister do the same, but she refuses, saying someone like him is better off dead. Meanwhile, our protagonist has upgraded Greedy Hand from bronze to gold. It now has a 70% chance of getting an extra item, and he also has 2 more evolution points. And to evolve Greedy Hand to +3, he needs 3 points. Then, he will have a 100% chance of getting an extra item. However, governments around the world must have caught on to the situation, and more people will be flooding into the game. He needed to speed up his progress and equip anything he could use. He knew it wouldn't be long before people realized that the skills and equipment from this game could be brought into the real world. When that happened, the world would fall into chaos. However, bringing skills and equipment out required 2 conditions. The first was to reach level 10. The second was to have enough tradable lifespan. Grinding small mobs took too much time, so he needed to find stronger bosses. While thinking about it, he found a party fighting a speed predator. He recognized Wang Mong. It was rumored that when Wang Mong entered the game, he assembled a whole team of hidden class players. Wang Mong's hidden class was a Holy Shield warrior, with double the base stats of a regular warrior and came with an innate immortality skill. The Prophet System Mage dealt double the magic damage of a regular mage, and came with a Prophet's Fireball. The Sharpshooter System Archer had double the stats of a regular archer and came with a rapid shot skill. The Divine Oracle System Priest had double the healing power of a regular priest, and started with a group healing skill. As Shadow watched Wang Mong fight, with a constant healing from the priest, he knew that if the battle dragged on, other monsters would be attracted. Just as expected, a corrupted, a level 2 common monster covered in dark brown mud, joined the battle. Shadow spotted another hidden class attacking the corrupted. However, he had never seen this class before, but the attack did almost no damage because the monster's defense was too high. The monster cast a leg-binding spell, reducing their movement speed. They were surprised when the corrupted was taken down in one hit. They couldn't even defeat a level 1 bug that easily, so that attack left them in shock. Our MC took down another one in a single blow, but they still couldn't see who it was. They could only hope that person was on their side. Shadow unlocked Poison Dart, a mid-range poison damage skill, and evolved it immediately. The Speed Predator stabbed Wang Meng, but they were surprised when someone attacked it out of thin air, and blew away half of the monster's health bar. The MC didn't expect the damage over time from the poison to trigger his class's passive. With stealth, he could maintain invisibility and throw infinite darts. Seeing the loot just disappear, Wang Mong wondered if that person was even human, and thanked Shadow for saving him. Although he couldn't see him, our MC told him not to trust anyone in the wild. Wang Mong seemed trustworthy to Shadow, and he was backed by the great Xia government with abundant resources. And Shadow needed a stable sales channel so he could sell him his unused loot. Once his inventory was full, Shadow decided he would return to town and exchange it for lifespan. Now that his growth rate was 100 times faster than in his previous life, Shadow looked forward to seeing Song Fei again. As some players were being surrounded by more and more monsters in the wild, they decided it was best to leave. But before they could, another monster appeared, towering over them, killing them one by one. They needed to reach level 3 to leave the game, but how could they possibly achieve that? Realizing that monsters always appeared in groups, they felt they needed a party of 6 or even 10 people. Another one of them pointed out that too many people would attract a boss, and it would be pointless if they never reached level 3. They would be stuck here forever, and right now they were just dying over and over again. Seeing that our MC was already at level 3, they decided to ask him to power level them to level 3. If he power leveled them to level 3, they would pay him 10 million in cash. Meanwhile, Shadow killed a polluter and finally had enough points to evolve the Hand of Greed. He got a 20% chance to upgrade loot by 1 tier, so maybe if he kept evolving it, it would reach 100 or even 200%. Shadow found the cursed boss, but it was consuming life force to advance to a silver tier boss, but even if Shadow killed it, he couldn't pick up its loot because his inventory was full, so he marked the location on his map and thought about coming back after clearing his inventory first. Meanwhile, in the safe town, others were gossiping about someone offering the MC 10 million to power level them. He returned to sell the items in his inventory, and other players noticed he was selling bronze tier equipment. They wondered why they couldn't see his face, and someone in the crowd pointed out he was using the concealment function, probably because he wanted to maintain an air of mystery. She asked to buy the Ice Cone skill from Shadow, and he requested 100 days of tradable lifespan. She tried to bargain, but Shadow told her that 100 days was already a steal. When she offered to pay with real money, our MC told her to use it to buy tradable lifespan from others, and then trade with him. She confirmed with her teammates, and after they agreed, she traded 100 days of lifespan for the Ice Cone skill. Zhang Li walked in, asking our MC to help her power level to level 3 in exchange for 10 million in cash. He remembered that in his past life, she was the leader of a criminal organization, and she would often lure people into selling their lifespan, then kidnap them for forced labor and kill those who resisted. When Shadow refused, she tried to bribe him with luxury cars, mansions, and anything else he wanted. But our hero still refused. He knew cash was worthless, and the only currency would be tradable lifespan. When Zhang Li refused to leave, and kept trying to convince him to agree, Shadow threatened to kill her until her lifespan hit 0. After selling everything, Shadow decided it was time to deal with the Cursed Master. No one knew yet that tradable lifespan could bring skills into the real world. No one knew this forsaken game would plunge the real world into chaos. Everything that people were proud of in the real world would soon become worthless. While Zhang Li was thinking of a way to get revenge on Shadow for threatening her, Mao Lijun walked in. He offered to help her level up if the 10 million cash offer was still on the table. Zhang Li negotiated, saying that since he wasn't as strong as Shadow, she would pay him 5 million in cash when they returned to reality. When our MC returned to the cursed boss's location, he discovered it had evolved to silver tier. Evolving from silver to gold would take at least 7 or 8 hours, and he was simply too lazy to wait. A silver tier boss's health was 2 to 3 times that of a bronze tier boss, and that was just 2 or 3 poison darts from our MC. The Cursed Master was a mage-type boss. Most of its skills were area of effect attacks, and they dealt high damage. If our MC hadn't gotten out of its attack range after throwing the poison dart, he would have been dead. He had to wait until stealth was off cooldown, then attack while the boss paused its assault. When he threw another poison dart, the monster started to flee because its health was nearly depleted. This made things easier for him. Killing the Cursed Master leveled him up twice, and earned him 4 evolution points. The Hand of Greed directly received the bonus reward, twice. The silver tier boss gave a total of 12 evolution points, and 372 days of tradable lifespan. Not only that, but the Hand of Greed's bonus effect also upgraded one of the MC's loot items from silver to gold tier. However, the monster had dropped 7 or 8 pieces of equipment, and his backpack only had 10 slots. And he couldn't just keep running back to sell things, so he really needed a spatial ring or something to increase his inventory space. Wang Mong and his party members finally reached level 3 and were now celebrating this victory. When the leaderboard updated Shadow's rank to number 5, the other players were once again shocked. They had a hard time leveling up, and only a few had just reached level 3. However, Wang Mong suggested returning to reality to inform their families and friends about the godforsaken game. When he logged out of the game, he woke up in reality. His friends gathered around, happy to see him awake. He told them to gather everyone because something big was happening. Wang Mong reported everything to his superiors about how our MC had saved him, how he leveled up, and how Shadow had gone from level 3 to level 5. One of them pointed out why our MC hadn't returned to reality, and whether he had any close friends or family to notify. Wang Mong's boss confirmed that his information matched the intel from higher-ups and that new research showed some elderly people dying, not long after they fell asleep. He added that, after collecting and comparing data with the employees who had returned to reality, many of them had actually died multiple times in the game. This meant that if your lifespan hit 0 in the game, you would die in real life. The boss thought they were being invaded by some unknown high-level beings. The higher-ups had issued an urgent order to form location-based vanguard teams to explore the game and share information. The boss said this was a major worldwide event and all countries were doing everything they could to explore the game. If they fell behind, it would mean losing power in the world, so they had to get information at all costs. He appointed Anyu as the team leader because he thought her personality was best suited for investigating. Shadow and appointed Wang Mong as the vice captain, telling them to pick their own team members. He ordered them to befriend Shadow to discover his true identity and gather all the information he possessed. He ordered the rest to maintain social order and dismissed the meeting. Back at school, the students were talking amongst themselves that as long as people in the same area went to sleep at the same time, they would appear in the same beginner village. Xiao Yu was still thinking about Chinfong and how he still hadn't apologized to her, because he usually apologized quickly whenever she was upset. This time she decided she wouldn't forgive him. However, this time she was glad she had met her boyfriend yesterday, because there wouldn't be many chances in the game anymore. She quickly realized that Song Fei would also enter the game when he slept, so she could find Song Fei just by entering the game. Xiao Yu decided to ask Zhang Wei to help her level up since he was an expert. Zhang Wei told her to put all her attribute points into agility, even though she was a mage class. Otherwise, she wouldn't be fast enough. He told her that as soon as someone reached level 5, he could activate the teleportation circle to the village, so she should form a random party. And when the teleportation circle opened, he would come find her and help her level up. Then, Xiao Yu went to sleep, thinking that she wouldn't help her brother level up when she was a higher level than him, but she had no idea about his ranking at all. Back in the game, our main character received a ring that increased all his attributes by 8 points, for a total of 32 points. This ring was equivalent to someone leveling up 3 times, and it also had a dark element resistance effect. It would be useful for Shadow in fighting many monsters. The weak point attack multiplier also started at 1.5 times. With this ring, another area of effect attack skill could allow for teleportation or even turn Shadow invisible. And with his remaining evolution points, he decided to evolve his greedy hand first. Now, killing a monster would give the main character 2 items. Killing one was now the equivalent of killing 3. He used his remaining points to upgrade instantaneous Shadow Slash by 3 tiers. However, the upgrade didn't affect the cooldown time, but just by relying on instantaneous Shadow Slash, he could stay invisible indefinitely. Level 4. Crawlers attack Shadow, creating the perfect moment to test the power of instantaneous Shadow Slash. Shadow's monster killing efficiency had increased. Now he only needed to use 2 poison darts to kill 1 monster. The shortened combat time also reduced the chance of accidents. Currently, Shadow had 618 days of tradable lifespan, but to bring his equipment and skills to reality, he had to use at least 900 days of tradable lifespan, so he decided to head back first and sell all the items in his bag. Maybe then he would reach the minimum required lifespan once he reached level 10. He would be able to bring his in-game skills and equipment to the real world. Mao Lu Jin helped Zhang Lin reach level 3 and asked her to pay him. She gave him her contact information and told him to contact her directly when she returned to reality. She also asked him to sell her tradable lifespan for 10,000 per day of lifespan. Mao Lu Jin happily agreed, thinking he was a genius for converting in-game abilities into real money. Our main character activated the teleportation circle in Shell Town, but it was useless for now. The teleportation circle in the Novice Town was 2-way, so until someone reached level 5 and activated one in another town, it remained useless. Shadow recalled that in his past life, Song Fei was in Firefly, so he decided to set an alert that would notify him when someone activated the Firefly Town teleportation circle. However, Shadow's main goal was to reach level 10 and then head to the God-Forsaken land. That was where the game God-Forsaken truly began. When he returned to Shell Town to sell his equipment, players surrounded him as if they had been waiting for his arrival. The last items he sold had proven to be a huge success, so more and more people wanted to buy, and in less than a minute, he sold out of everything. He received 650 days of tradable lifespan, bringing his total to 2,174. But it still wasn't enough if he wanted to bring his level attributes, class, and equipment back to reality. As he was about to leave, one of the players approached him with a spatial ring. The ring was a special storage item, and its value lay in the fact that it didn't take up ring or backpack equipment slots, and each player could only carry a maximum of 3 storage backpacks. This ring was extremely rare. In the past, a 12-slot ring like this could sell for 3,600 days. However, the girl said she didn't want lifespan. She wanted him to add her as a friend and asked him to party up to kill a boss. Shadow agreed and asked her for the boss's name. She told him she couldn't see its name, but that it was a gold-tier boss, and it was a dilapidated-looking boat in a swamp. Our main character realized it might be the Golden Ghost ship. It was a special rare boss that could appear at any level. This boss's appearance rate was extremely low, and it dropped some very useful special equipment. Every time the Golden Ghost ship appeared, a fierce battle would break out between different guilds over it. The town where it appeared had to be level 5, and it was the easiest boss to kill. Encountering the golden ghost ship in a beginner village required one to get the rare storage ring and also be a member of Wang Meng's party. Our main character realized she might be the rumored koi fish from his past life. She told him that after she finished eating in real life, she wanted to get in the game and level up with her party, but they were too slow, so she started wandering around. And that's when she discovered the gold tier boss. In Shadow's past life, there was a rumor that Wang Meng's party had a member like her, who could stumble upon rare bosses while wandering, treasure chests, dungeons, and shrines. At first, he thought it was just a smokescreen to cover up information, but he never expected her to be real. Meanwhile, a spy had overheard the entire conversation, and he ran back to report to his boss that our main character had taken a girl out of town. Shadow told Koi that he could help with the boss, but if the boss dropped any equipment and skill books, he would give them to her, and he would take the rest after some negotiation. Koi suggested that if there was any equipment for Captain Wang Meng and the rest, he should sell it to them at a preferential price. After settling the deal, our protagonist suggested they go fight the gold tier boss. Koi objected, saying he was an assassin while she was a mage, and she couldn't tank the boss if it attacked her. Shadow reassured her that he could fight the boss alone and she could watch from a safe distance. This surprised Koi because even though he was very strong, killing a gold tier boss alone seemed too absurd to her. While Koi was still thinking, our main character disappeared. The thugs who were following them from behind thought he had abandoned the girl and ran to capture her, but our main character was hiding nearby and had already eliminated them. However, he only got 12 days of lifespan from these poor guys. Shadow reappeared and told the girl that some people were following them, so he went to send them back to the village. As she was rambling on about his invisibility and how convenient it would be for bathroom breaks, he cut her off and told her to lead him to the boss. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu finally logged into the game and was overwhelmed by how real everything felt. As a reward, she received the hidden class, Priestess. She knew how powerful this class was and believed it would make her worthy of standing beside her brother, her glorious Song Fei. A thought about what her brother might be doing in the game crossed her mind, but even as she thought of her biological brother, the idea quickly faded. She cursed Chinfong for being so bossy and dull, convinced she didn't need him anymore. Jiang Wei had promised to help her level up, and in her eyes, it would be best if her brother just disappeared for good. But when she checked the rankings, she noticed a player named Shadow was already sitting pretty at level 6. This made her doubt Jiang Wei's claims of expertise. Compared to him, Shadow seemed vastly superior, and if she could just find the Shadow, she was sure she could advance in the game much faster. Before she could act on it, she overheard a nearby party discussing their recent defeat. They were frustrated, admitting they needed a healer. Sensing her opportunity, Xiaoyu stepped forward, introducing herself as the hidden class, Life Sacrifice, and insisting she would be incredibly helpful. Meanwhile, Shadow headed toward the cliff with the girl and spotted the golden ghost ship drifting in the distance. He warned Xiao He to hide and watch for ambushes while he handled the boss alone. Before the girl could protest, he vanished into thin air and landed in the river below. The ship's domain had turned the area into a chaotic space where lifespan drained at 100 times the normal rate, which was equivalent to losing a full day of life. The golden ghost ship was a level 5 enemy, and with a countdown timer showing 45 minutes left, Shadow breathed a sigh of relief. He knew special bosses always had a time limit, and this was more than enough. He activated Instant Shadow, followed immediately by Poison Dart and then Stealth Break. The combo tore off a huge chunk of the golden ghost's health, though it still had quite a bit remaining. Shadow knew from experience that most players made a very common mistake. The real weak point here wasn't the skeleton or the ship, but the ghost firebell mounted on the bow. But once attacked, the ghost would control the surrounding water and unleash a massive water-based assault. The water pillars it summoned dealt devastating damage, and even low-level warriors in silver-grade armor would struggle to survive a single hit. Fortunately, Shadow's agility allowed him to dodge like a pro. The next danger came after the water attack. The ghost would summon 12 rotting water demons, each as strong as a silver-grade monster. They materialized in just a few seconds, attacking in a tight formation. The worst part was that the boss could repeat the summoning cycle, constantly creating full squads of 12. Shadow slipped into his invisible state, and the demons couldn't sense him, so all he needed was the right angle to take them down cleanly. Xiao He was only a level 3 healer, so all of this was new to her, and she could only stand there watching in shock. She'd never imagined someone so powerful was on her team, and now she understood why Shadow was ranked number 1. Then Shadow called out to her, saying he was about to die. At first, she didn't believe him, but he told her to just wait, that he'd be reviving soon. She couldn't comprehend what was going on, and while she was trying to process this, the party they had just beaten returned. Jealous and furious, they charged towards Xiao He, convinced Shadow had to be somewhere nearby. Shadow was prepared for the next phase, knowing that the fourth and most dangerous part of the fight would begin once the golden ghost ship's health dropped below half. It would unleash a soul wave, an area of effect blast that immobilized everyone for 5 seconds, and not even his invisibility could save him. When it hit, he was trapped, and the ship's attack came crashing down. It drained a chunk of his experience and killed him instantly, costing him 326 years of non-tradable lifespan. The rival party laughed smugly as they watched Shadow fall, thinking he wasn't so tough after all. They figured the boss must be weak by now and charged toward the skeleton. But before they could even touch it, they were all wiped out in the blink of an eye and sent back to spawn. The party returned to town, confused and angry. They hadn't expected the boss to be so powerful, but not wanting to give up, they headed back for another try. Shadow also returned to the battlefield and greeted Xiao He, who was shocked to see him back so soon. She told him she had just seen a group charge and screaming, only to be wiped out by a water blast. Shadow recalled how much he had struggled against the golden ghost ship in his past life, but now, with his experience, he knew its immobilization skill could only be used once. After that, the second half of the fight would be a breeze for him. The ship was already below half health, so if he didn't finish it now, it might disappear and respawn somewhere far away, so he needed to end this fast. He threw a poison dart, hitting the bells at the front of the ship. Then he used Shadow Step, having already tracked the ghost ship's path. Meanwhile, that clueless party returned, trying to jump in and take down both Shadow and the ship. But Xiao He wasn't about to let that happen. She used her power and called down lightning on them, but that just made them even angrier. The whole group charged her, and she had to run for her life. Elsewhere, a second group of vultures was hiding behind some trees, watching the whole thing unfold and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The boss was finally on its last legs, and the fight had already dragged on for too long because other players had started to notice and were planning to snatch his loot. But Shadow was no saint about to share the fruits of his labor, so after a few quick teleports, he finished off the golden ghost ship, earning 40,800 experience points, hitting level 8 and gaining 7 evolution points. He also received the title of world's first golden rank boss slayer, triggering a server-wide announcement. Everyone who saw it was left speechless. No one had expected someone at their level could pull something like that off. Most of these newbies couldn't even handle basic monsters. Meanwhile, the nearby vultures grew greedy. They stared at the loot, wanting it for themselves. The leader called his warrior over, Agwang, and told him to find and kill Shadow before he escaped. Agwang used his Phantom Eagle skill to scout the area, but he didn't realize Shadow was already operating on a completely different level than anyone expected, so he couldn't spot him. When the party saw no one around, they assumed Shadow had already bolted and they rushed in to claim the loot, but they still had to wait for 5 minutes before they could collect it. However, they weren't going to be that lucky. With just a few slashes and swings, Shadow killed every last one of them. Thinking he could finally enjoy his earnings, he realized his Xiao He was gone and made a mental note to check on her later. Looking at his evolution points, both the ones he had left over and the ones he'd just earned, he realized he had just enough to evolve his Greedy Hand skill. Using Greedy Hand, he collected all the life orbs and detonated them at once, gaining 21 evolution points, a massive amount of tradable lifespan days, and a special item, the Ghostfire Bell. It was a rather rare item to obtain. When equipped, it prevents the loss of lifespan days upon death, but it had an 18-second cooldown. He could also shake it to immobilize all enemies within a 100-meter radius for 300 seconds. Since it was an item, not equipment, it didn't take up an equipment slot. The 2 bells only took up a single inventory slot, making them even more convenient for him. He was busy collecting his loot when he heard his friend in trouble. She was screaming for help. Shadow tried to ask where Xiao He was, but it was too late. She had been cornered at the edge of a mountain, with a group of thugs closing in on her. But Xiao He refused to give them the satisfaction, and without a moment's hesitation, she leaped off the cliff, dying instantly. The group was stunned that she had chosen death over submitting to them. A moment later, Shadow received her secret message. He told him not to come find her, because she had respawned in town and would meet him there to trade items. Shadow checked his loot, and it was a huge success. He received 315 days of tradable lifespan, 21 evolution points, and enough resources to evolve Greedy Hand, but he knew higher-level skills were more expensive now, so upgrading wasn't cheap. He decided to prioritize damage, putting 8 points into Instant Shadow and 10 into Enhanced Backstab. With that, Instant Shadow now dealt double damage without breaking stealth. It could deal over 3,000 damage in a single hit. Once stealth was broken, his 7-hit combo could reach 7,000 damage. Normally, a gold boss would drop 2 to 4 silver items with a small chance of getting gold equipment. With Greedy Hand, Shadow got much more than that. He obtained 11 gold items and a few skill books, 2 platinum items, and even a platinum skill book, among which was the Ghost Ship Twin Blades, a platinum assassin weapon that struck twice with each normal attack. He also got the Ghostfire leather armor set, which increased his health by an additional 419 and enhanced his stealth. Now, low-level players couldn't even scratch him. To avoid attention, He hid the armor set and kept the default appearance of the Shadow class, so others wouldn't scrutinize his stats. Next, he opened the Gold Assassin skill book, Spectral Mist. Most players avoided this skill because a failed dodge would reduce other stats. But Shadow didn't have that concern since he could evolve skills infinitely. Enhancing his dodge came with no drawbacks. For him, it was a pure benefit. After stashing everything, he headed back to town to sell his loot. On the way, Shadow ran into the same thugs who had been chasing Hey. The moment they saw him, they panicked and ran, but he was faster. Even as they begged for their lives, he didn't stop. He killed them all in one hit and received the Level 1 Murderer title. When he finally entered the town, the crowd reacted in awe. They were a mix of scared, curious, and impressed. But when they saw him in his mediocre gear, their confusion spread. He didn't look like someone with that much power. Soon after, the group that tried to rob him earlier returned. Their leader, Dongfang Shen, stepped forward and apologized as a peace offering. They offered him an assassin skill book they had bought with their lifespan. Shadow took it without a word. It was just Pierce, a common skill. The rest of the team was furious because they had paid with their lives for a skill only for it to end up in the hands of the one who killed them. But their captain insisted it was a smart move. Shadow was leveling up too fast and was a solo player, so the suspicion that he was hiding something grew. Their strategy was simple. Wait for him to log out, track him in real life, lock him up, and force him to reveal his secrets. If that failed, they would try another way. Send a woman to seduce the truth out of him. Judging by his tone, they figured he wasn't from their circle. Probably just some dirt-poor outsider, which made him an even easier target. All they needed was the right woman, one charming enough that he couldn't resist. Meanwhile, Shadow met up with Hei, whom he considered his lucky charm, and gave her a scale and a necklace. Both items multiplied her damage and doubled her mana regeneration speed. She was overjoyed, and Shadow told her it was a pleasure doing business. She then told him that while walking through the forest earlier, she had stumbled upon a place that looked like the entrance to some ruins. This immediately caught Shadow's attention, and he realized she might know hidden spots where elite monsters spawned, so she was worth keeping around. He asked where Wang Ming was, as he wanted to complete their trade before leaving. But Hei explained that the captain and the others were busy training a new member, so they wouldn't be around for a while. She had marked the ruins' entrance on his map and said there was a stone slab hidden in the bushes, which she had moved to get inside. But as soon as she stepped in, she heard horrific screams and ran right back out. Shadow thought it was too tempting to wait, so he decided to deal with Meng later and head to the ruins now. He teleported, thinking he was about to grind his way to level 10. But luckily, the ruins would help him get there much faster. Apparently, in the novice village, 3 types of ruins could appear: catacombs, cursed ruins, and temples of faith. But it didn't matter which type it was, because even the weakest enemies inside were bronze or silver rank. And for Shadow, that meant more lifespan drops and more evolution points. As Shadow moved inside, he explained that the monsters in cursed ruins were all cursed by ancient and evil gods. Some were once human but had lost their minds or turned into ghosts after death, and clearing a cursed ruin or a temple would reward a special item or a skill book. Shadow looked at the murals and quickly realized he was in a temple of faith. The art looked familiar, and then it hit him that this was the temple of faith for the ancient god of judgment, the same origin as his Eye of Judgment skill. Meanwhile, Meng and his team were fighting monsters. The captain was injured, and everyone yelled for Xiao Yu to heal him. But she froze, started crying, and asked how she was supposed to do it. Suddenly, a red monster fell from the sky, and they all screamed for her to use her skill, but instead of casting, she threw down her staff and sobbed that she was scared. Back in town, everyone was furious with Xiao Yu. Hei ran up to them, saying she just had a small quest with Shadow and that he would be back later to trade. But they ignored her and focused on Xiao Yu, calling her useless. The healer stepped in and defended her, saying it was normal for a new player to panic in battle. One guy argued back that they didn't just die once. In fact, they had died 3 times because of her. Hei told them that Xiao Yu now had gold-grade armor, so they should give her another chance on the battlefield. She was sure Xiao Yu could be helpful. Meng agreed, saying it was worth a shot. Xiao Yu apologized on the surface, but inwardly she was bitter. She thought they were the incompetent ones and were just blaming her, because she was new. And if they didn't know Shadow, she wouldn't even be wasting her time on them. Meanwhile, Shadow went deeper into the ruins and spotted 2 monsters praying at an altar. They were level 10, silver-ranked devout followers of the ancient god of judgment. He used instant Shadow Slash to interrupt their prayer and deal massive damage. Even after breaking stealth and backstabbing, they only lost a small amount of health. As expected from level 10 silver-ranked mobs, their total health was more than even the gold-ranked ghost ship he had defeated earlier. But then, both monsters knelt again. This time, they faced him. Shadow thought it was a bug since he was still in stealth mode. A thought flashed through his mind, maybe they had sensed his Eye of Judgment skill, and that's why they weren't attacking. So, he spoke up, asking if they knew the way and could lead him. But their blank expressions said otherwise. Shadow quickly realized they were no longer sentient. Their bodies had decomposed and their minds were corrupted, and now they were just feral beasts, who only knew how to steal lifespan and could no longer speak. However, when they looked into his eyes, they panicked and suddenly ran, not away from him, but towards something else. Shadow heard a group of people entering from another path, screaming about the monsters heading their way, saying they were silver rank. Shadow watched them and recognized a girl. She was the one who had bought the frost spike from him, and her name was Grey Rose. He was surprised they had found the ruins, but judging by their gear, they weren't ready to go deep inside, let alone fight silver rank enemies. In a matter of seconds, they were all wiped out. Shadow watched their carelessness. They dropped 100 days of tradable lifespan, and he figured they must be loaded. The believers knelt before him again, but Shadow knew there was nothing else to discover here. No traps, no hidden rooms, just 2 corrupted silver-grade mini-bosses. So he finished them off and earned 4,000 experience points, pushing him to level 9. He activated Hand of Greed and received 32 evolution points and 1,504 days of tradable lifespan, 4 gold-grade items, 10 silver-grade items, and 1 rare assassin item, the Believer's Pendant. It was a gold-grade accessory with 15 agility points and a 20% cooldown reduction, and a unique effect that allowed him to summon a silver-grade devout believer to fight by his side. The necklace had good stats and a 20% cooldown reduction. It reduced his stealth cooldown from 22.6 seconds to 19.2 seconds, and Poison Dart from 4.3 to 3.7 seconds, and Instant Shadow Slash from 10.4 to 8.8 seconds, making his farming much smoother overall. The gear also had a level 8 requirement, so no one else could use it yet. He decided to keep it and maybe sell it later. Suddenly, something changed. A small pillar rose from the ground, and Shadow realized a mechanism had been triggered. Now that the monsters were cleared, Shadow approached the small pillar to inspect it, and realized it was actually an elevator. He descended about 300 to 400 meters. When the elevator stopped, he found himself in a hidden maze beneath the temple. This kind of maze under a temple was common, and there was always a certain chance for one to appear. He had explored many places like this in his past life and knew the maze was full of traps. But as long as someone acted as a meat shield, it wasn't too dangerous. The only issue was that it was very time-consuming. Exploring alone was risky, since one wrong step could mean instant death. Luckily, he had the Believer's Pendant, which allowed him to summon a silver-grade devout believer to fight alongside him. He summoned a believer and had it scout ahead while he quietly followed the path. It seemed easy at first glance, but he remained vigilant, as danger could appear at any moment. As he walked, he used 11 of his evolution points to upgrade Phantom Blur from Gold Grade to Epic Grade. The Epic upgrade gave him a 75% passive evasion rate, and when an evasion was triggered, it granted him complete damage immunity. A 75% evasion rate was already very high, and with that effect, it was a powerful defensive tool. He used his remaining points to evolve Instant Shadow Slash to Epic Grade. This upgrade increased the slash's width to 5 meters, and added 400 damage. He remembered that upgrading from Epic to Legendary Grade cost 10 times the evolution points, so the higher a skill's starting grade, the more cost-effective it was to evolve. He still had 11 evolution points left, so he used them on his starting skill, Shadow Step. His cooldown reduction stat lowered its cooldown by 35%, but even so, Shadow Step's final cooldown was 16.3 seconds, which was still too long. Its damage when breaking stealth was also low, so he planned to replace the skill soon. While he was busy sorting things out, his believer went ahead and accidentally stepped on the wrong stone tile. A giant boulder dropped down and crushed it instantly. Shadow watched and said he'd just wait for the cooldown before summoning it again. The maze was complex and full of traps, so he could only move slowly. All he hoped was that whatever waited at the end of the path was worth the effort. Meanwhile, on the upper floor of the temple, Hui Hong and her party returned and realized the 2 monsters were gone when they checked the area. They also noticed the lifespan held by the monsters had vanished, which meant someone had killed them and taken the reward. At this stage, only an expert like Shadow could defeat 2 silver-grade bosses, so they all agreed it must have been him. They also understood they wouldn't be able to fight or die here again, since the monsters were gone. Hui Hong recalled hearing someone earlier, who seemed to be talking to the monsters. The memory was now crystal clear. It could have been Shadow, and if that were true, then he probably also had a skill that allowed him to control or charm bosses. If that was the case, then the kind of power he wielded was hard to imagine and frankly, quite terrifying. Meanwhile, the summoned believer was repeatedly killed over and over again while Shadow slowly made his way through the maze. After about 3 hours of exploring, he finally reached the end of the path. He summoned another believer and sent it ahead. They eventually came to a large stone door. He told the believer to open it, but it couldn't, so he stepped forward himself. He touched the door, and it opened. Inside, he saw a chest placed in the center of the room. Coins were scattered all around, the chest was locked, and next to it was an NPC. Shadow took a closer look at her but saw no name, no stats, and no visible details. The woman spoke in an ancient language he didn't understand, then slowly began to fade away. At the same time, the spikes on the treasure chest also vanished. Shadow guessed she must be related to the Eye of Judgment. Somehow, though he couldn't confirm it yet, he turned his attention to the chest. Its golden glow signaled epic-grade loot, but he remained cautious. There was always a risk of a trap or a mimic disguised as a reward. To be safe, he sent the believer to open it. The mindless zombie reached out and lifted the chest lid. Inside, Shadow saw a skill book for assassins. It was a rare, god-tier skill that included both an active and a passive skill, and from the first glance, he knew this was no ordinary item. The book was called Merciful Short Gun and included a passive effect that improved weak point hit correction by 100% and doubled the weak point damage multiplier. Along with that, he got Throat Slit, an active skill that inflicted a powerful debuff. The next time he attacked, the target would take 100% of that hit's damage per second for 3 seconds. The skill had a 60-second cooldown. The passive effect also doubled the size of an enemy's weak point hit zone, making it much easier to land critical hits. But the real value was in the Throat Slit skill. For example, if his next attack dealt 300 damage, the debuff would add another 300 damage per second for 3 seconds, dealing a total of 1,200 damage, 4 times the initial hit, making it one of the most overpowered assassin combos he'd ever acquired. He could use instant Shadow Slash and land multiple hits, but Throat Slit would only apply the debuff to the first one. However, since it was at epic grade, it only needed 10 evolution points to reach legendary grade. This loot was a huge win for him, and now his burst damage had skyrocketed several times over. And all of this was thanks to Xiao He. That's why he decided to sell his extra loot to her party, as a way to return the favor. He used a secret transmission to contact Xiao He, and told her to tell their captain, Wang Meng, to return to town because he had some items to sell. The girl was shocked to learn he had already finished exploring the ruins, but the team quickly returned to town. As soon as Shadow arrived, other players gathered around him, trying to get his attention. They called him Big Brother, asked for advice, and acted friendly, hoping he would take them under his wing. And they weren't just from Firefly Town anymore. Players from Clearwater Town and Blue Wave Town had also shown up. The teleportation gates between towns seemed to have been activated, and now he could move freely between them, including Song Fei's Firefly Town. Just then, he vanished again, leaving the townspeople bewildered. But Shadow was actually still nearby, hidden in plain sight. He found his good luck charm, and together they met with Wang Meng, where he noticed Xiao Yu had joined their party. This confused him, as someone like her could drag down such a good team. But he knew he had to be cautious now that everyone knew about Shadow. He couldn't risk revealing his true identity. In the real world, he had no powers. Even a kitchen knife could kill him while his body was asleep. Xiao Yu rushed over and started flirting. Saying he looked even stronger in person, she figured that if she stuck close to him, she would get to meet her idol, Song Fei, in the next few days. Ying completely ignored her and proceeded with the trade. He traded the top-tier skill books and items for 2,200 days of lifespan. Wang Meng said these items were too expensive for them, because most of them were silver and gold tier, and they didn't have enough. But Ying told him he was letting them buy on credit, and they could pay him back later. The captain was baffled by this kindness and didn't understand why Ying was helping them. So he made an offer that if Ying ever needed anything, they would be ready to assist him at a moment's notice. Everyone checked out their new gold tier gear and skills and immediately felt stronger and more grateful to Ying. They admired the stats, excited that they could finally take on stronger monsters. But Xiao Yu was the only one who got nothing. Meng told her there was nothing for a priest among the loot they received. And the rest of the team shrugged, saying she was lucky to get free experience just for tagging along. Xiao Yu then went up to Ying and complained, saying she was also a priest and should have gotten some gear. She even sent him a friend request. Her in-game name was Xiao Ya. Ying found this ironic given her attitude. Once again, he completely ignored her. Without saying a word or even looking in her direction, he vanished, leaving the crowd confused but also relieved. Everyone secretly celebrated him, intentionally ignoring her and leaving like a hero. Meanwhile, Ying knew that he actually had a gold-tier priest staff and even a gold-tier priest skill book in his inventory. But he would sooner choke on his own blood than give them to his ungrateful sister. As he leveled up, he knew he would collect tons of excess gear and skill books, and selling them one by one would be a waste of time. Meng's connection with the authorities was perfect for bulk sales and storage. However, he couldn't let Xiao Yu ruin his partnership with them, so he needed to find a competent replacement for her. That's when he remembered Gu Yishuai. The former manager of the Golden Slaughter Guild in his past life, she played a hidden priest class called the White Bird Witch. This class came with a White Bird companion that could heal and apply buffs. She was exactly the kind of support unit Meng's team needed. She was the only priest Ying knew who could solo an epic tier boss, and in his eyes, she was a true powerhouse. a complete opposite to Xiao Yu, who was just dead weight. Then he suddenly realized Xiao Shui was also from Firefly Town, the same place as Song Fei. Now he had two reasons to go there, and it was a perfect setup, killing two birds with one stone. Without wasting any time, he headed for the teleportation gate. As he stepped through, he remained in stealth mode, keeping his presence concealed. But as soon as he arrived in Firefly Town, something felt off. The streets were quiet, too quiet. He listened closely and heard panicked voices. Apparently, two men had just been killed, and were about to head back to the battlefield because the silver tier boss they were fighting was now below half health, and they didn't want anyone else to KS and steal the kill, and the reward. They also mentioned that Song Fei was there with his usual crew of fangirls, and they needed to hurry before a bunch of his brain-dead fans jumped into a fight they couldn't handle just to impress some mid-tier idol. Ying was surprised that in just a few seconds, he had already gathered so much intel on Song Fei, so he decided to quietly follow them. They arrived at Weeping Ember Alley, a level 5 area where monsters like Emberdeens and shackled ghouls roamed. In the center, Ying spotted a two-headed, silver-tier boss covered in amber-colored scales. But the real chaos wasn't the boss. It was the players attacking each other while trying to land a hit on it. Then Song Fei arrived, completely surrounded by his personal army of fangirls, as if they were a human shield. The surrounding players started shouting and cursing, calling him a thief who had ambushed them and stolen their lifespan. They swore to finish him off right then and there. But before anyone could even touch Song Fei, a tank mage charged in and slammed a guy to the ground with her staff, yelling that no one was allowed to harm her appa. Song Fei held the title Heaven-Defying God of Magic and had a mage class. In Ying's past life, he remembered how Song Fei had tricked dozens of fangirls into picking the mage class. Once they got decent skills and gear, he took everything from them to power himself up. The team composition had no real balance, but his fans found ways to compensate. Some dumped all their points into intelligence and became glass cannon mages, while others focused on agility for harassment. Others stacked health to tank hits, and a few tried to become battle mages by pumping strength and swinging their staves like maces. Ying recalled that in the early stages of the game, this setup worked surprisingly well. Song Fei's team ran rampant, stealing the lifespan of anyone they encountered. No one could stand against them. But as the game progressed, most of his fangirls started dropping like flies, both in-game and in real life. And every time one of them died, Song Fei would obtain more of their untradeable items, draining them dry until nothing was left. Ying's assessment was spot on, because on the battlefield, Song Fei was goading his fangirls into fighting for him. Though he didn't say it outright, he acted as if he cared about them, talking about wanting peace and love in the world, but in reality, he was just hyping them up to fight for him. Turns out this fandom was even crazier than Ying expected, because they even had songs and chants to cheer him on, as if he were some kind of god. The fangirls threw themselves at the silver-tier monster, and when the monster tried to attack Song Fei, they would jump in to block the hit and sacrifice themselves, saying they would simp for him forever. One girl yelled at her sisters to fight harder, because they had to defeat Ying and ensure their big brother claimed the #1 spot. As expected, the chanting started up again, their voices echoing over and over. Meanwhile, Song Fei saw the silver-tier boss was close to death, but he was still thinking about how Ying had somehow soloed a gold-tier boss. To him, soloing that kind of monster was impossible. He convinced himself that Ying must have exploited a bug or had a huge party helping him, because at level 7, there was no way anyone could be that good. Song Fei told himself that once he took down this silver-tier boss, he would hit level 8. Since Ying had been stuck at level 9 for so long, he would surpass him in one fell swoop and claim the #1 spot in the game. But he was dead wrong. Ying wasn't thinking about levels at all, he just wanted to eliminate the pest in front of him. The very next moment, someone grabbed Song Fei's head and ripped it clean off his body. It was Ying. He came in with an instant shadow slash, wiping out Song Fei and his entire fandom in a single blow. The other players, who were also fighting the silver-tier boss, stared at Ying's skull mask, unable to believe he had dealt thousands of damage in a single hit. He was insanely powerful and leagues above them. Without a moment's hesitation, they backed off and left the loot for the pro. Knowing he'd killed Song Fei and his crew and done everyone there a huge favor, the crowd started cheering for him. But Ying figured they were just scared he'd turn on them next, so they were trying to suck up to him. Meanwhile, back in town, Song Fei couldn't believe he had died so easily. He wondered why Ying had targeted him out of the hundreds of starter towns in the city. His fangirls were just as furious. They rushed to his side and said Ying must have felt threatened by him, so he had to eliminate him. They called Ying a total scumbag for it. Just then, an archer approached Song Fei, saying she had eagle eye to detect stealth and wanted to join his party. One of the fangirls quickly shot her down, saying they only accepted mages. They added that her low EXP would drag down their big brother's rank climbing, but Song Fei stopped them in their tracks and pulled his usual manipulation card, telling the girls that they were all family and that love can conquer all. He turned to the archer and said that he could feel her passion, and that it didn't matter that she was an archer. She should join them so they could all get stronger together. Just as expected, the archer burst into tears, sniffling that she was crazy about her big brother. Soon after, many girls from other classes also came and Song Fei expanded his army, while the girls sang about how precious and lovely their big brother was, and how they would get revenge on Shadow. All the men in the other teams looked at the fangirls and thought that they had completely lost their minds. Meanwhile, Song Fei was reveling in his growing success, thinking that with so many witnesses, once he killed Shadow, the whole world would see that no matter how strong a lone wolf was, it was nothing. A paper-thin assassin was nothing compared to a noble mage like him. On the other side, Shadow used the greedy hand to collect 16 evolution points and 217 tradable lifespans. He evolved the Mercy's Blessing skill. This skill now made the target's weak spot twice as large. If it got any bigger, half of the enemy's body would count as a weak spot, and even his instant Shadow Slash could trigger weak spot damage. The Slit Throat skill was also greatly enhanced, with its cooldown reduced from 30 seconds to 25 seconds, giving him a real chance to finish off a gold-tier boss in one hit. An epic tier skill initially cost 0 evolution points to upgrade to legendary tier, but going from legendary to mythic tier cost 100 times more. In his system now, it would take 200 points to reach mythic tier. By that logic, upgrading the greedy hand from epic to legendary tier would cost around 210 points, and going to mythic tier would cost over 3,400 points, which was impossible right now since he only had 9 points left. So he upgraded Enhanced Backstab instead, killing the silver tier boss and a bunch of players. Netted him a total of over 14 days of tradable lifespan. With everything settled, he decided it was time to head back, but suddenly someone attacked him. Shadow quickly recognized her and dodged at the last second, making her miss all her attacks. He then looked up and saw an army of fangirls standing on top of the mountain, chanting for his death and vowing that they would avenge their big brother, Song Fei, and his untimely death. But Shadow didn't have time for all their slogans and songs for their idol, so he activated his stealth skill. The new archer, full of confidence in her skills, smirked and said, "It's useless, because they could detect him no matter what." She sent her eagle to circle overhead to reveal his position, but there was no sign of him anywhere. Suddenly, they spotted a figure, and without hesitation, they all charged in and unleashed their strongest skills at once, screaming that they would take him down. But it turned out that the figure was one of their own and was the female assassin they had sent to kill Shadow. One of the older mages quickly tried to justify her death, saying that she wasn't a mage in the first place, which meant she never truly loved Song Fei, and then she told the archer to use Eagle Eye again to find Shadow. Meanwhile, Shadow used his Ghostfire Bell to freeze every enemy. For 3 seconds, everyone realized they couldn't move and started to panic, and with one instant Shadow Slash, Shadow wiped them all out. He was still in stealth when he noticed Song Fei, hiding behind a mountain, wondering why his entire army was dead and feeling fear creep up on him. Shadow leaned in and whispered in his ear that he was already dead, and Song Fei immediately put up his magic shield to protect himself. But it was useless, as Shadow plunged his blade in and gouged his eyes out. Shadow then realized Song Fei had used a lifespan skill on him, and after some calculation, he knew he had over 2,000 tradable lifespans, but none of these fangirls had any tradable lifespan, which meant they had given every last bit of it to Song Fei. They thought this game was just a game, but it was scary how brainwashed they were. Shadow thought it was such a waste, because all that untradable lifespan added up to centuries, and now it would just become monster feed. Song Fei and his army respawned back in town, and Song Fei started panicking, saying he only had 500 days of tradable lifespan left because of Shadow. He angrily asked the archer why she didn't use her detection skill to find him. The archer tearfully said that she did, but it only found their assassin's sister. Another mage said maybe Shadow's stealth level was too high. Song Fei thought that meant Shadow could come and go without a trace, and he couldn't defend against that. But he also told himself that he hadn't provoked Shadow and had already stolen his boss kill, so Shadow shouldn't be coming after him. Then he told himself maybe Shadow was just jealous of his looks. He said for everyone's safety, they should change spots to grind levels, and all his fangirls cheered that wherever their big brother went, they would follow. A while later, Shadow returned to Firefly Town, still in stealth mode, and saw that Song Fei and his group were gone. They could have left town or logged off. He asked a nearby passerby where they went, and the man said Song Fei went in a certain direction and told Shadow to go kill him, but with one request, that when Shadow killed him, to spare his girlfriend. Shadow recognized her name as Phoebo Kitty, a female archer. This girlfriend was the one with the stealth detection earlier, and thought that guy should get a new girlfriend. Since she was long gone, Shadow left, knowing that even if he had the direction, he didn't know their destination and searching blindly would be a waste of time. If he could find Gu Yishu, all his troubles would be solved. Just then, he spotted the girl he was looking for and walked right up to her, asking if she could help him. Yishua's face immediately flushed, unable to believe that Shadow was standing in front of her, but he got straight to the point and said he heard she could search for targets over a large area, so he needed her to find Song Fei's location for him. In return, he would sell her a gold-grade staff for a very cheap price. Yishu asked how he knew she could perform such a search, since she had never told anyone. Shadow told her not to worry about that, and the girl said she might not have enough money. Shadow asked if she could pay him 500 days of lifespan, since its original price was around 800 days, and she agreed. They completed the trade, and Yishu was practically drooling over her new staff. Shadow snapped her out of her trance and told her to hurry up. Yishu asked if he wasn't afraid, that she would just take the staff and run. Shadow said that, in fact, she also hated Song Fei. Yishu then asked if he was her friend in real life, because his voice sounded very familiar to her. She didn't wait for his answer and quickly summoned her owl. She flew into the sky and in just a moment was able to pinpoint Song Fei's location. She gave him Song Fei's coordinates, but also told him that she couldn't guarantee they would stay put, and they might move by the time he got there. Shadow told her to add him as a friend, so she could keep tracking and updating him on their location, as it wouldn't take him more than a moment to finish him off. Shadow headed towards the desert, but something else caught his attention, and Yishu noticed it and asked what was holding him back. Shadow told her to look around and see if there were any other trees, like the one nearby. The owl scanned the area and found 2 more trees, forming a triangle. Shadow went to the tree in front of him and touched the strange symbol carved on it. As soon as he did, a glowing triangle formed between all 3 trees and a jade treasure chest slowly rose from the ground. Shadow thought he was very lucky to find a blessing of an ancient god in this forgotten village, and even luckier that it spawned a chest. The blessing of the ancient god could appear anywhere in the Forgotten Lands. Some areas had strange symbols, and activating all of them would unlock the blessing. Some blessings summoned powerful monster bosses, others summoned weaker monster hordes, some gave treasure chests, and some even granted unique rewards. Yishu realized that this chest must be worth at least 10,000 days of lifespan. Shadow thought her guess wasn't bad, since in his past life, the exchange rate for tradable lifespan was about 1 to 100, to 1 to 10,000, and by the second day, the rate had soared to over 1 to 50,000. Yishu watched closely and said that she needed to memorize exactly what he just did, because with her scouting skills, she could find many more chests like this. Inside the chest, Shadow found an item called the Blooming Curse, and even he didn't know what kind of skill this was. The description said that when used on the corpse of a player who had been dead for less than 15 seconds, it would cause a cursed flower to grow from the body. It would continuously drain the target's total lifespan until it reached 0, and it had no cooldown. Shadow immediately realized this must be the overpowered skill he had heard rumors about but never really knew the details of. With this skill, he could drain every last bit of a player's lifespan. That meant Song Fei's good days were over. Shadow swore that this time he would hunt him down until he quit the game. Then he would quickly reach level 10 and bring his powers into the real world, and kill Song Fei for good in the real world. Meanwhile, Song Fei and his army were fighting a monster. Song Fei thought they had run so far that Shadow would never be able to chase them all the way here. Once he grinded to a higher level here, he would settle the score with that guy. One of his mages pointed out that someone nearby was fighting a boss, and Song Fei immediately said they looked like fans of another idol. It was as if something exploded in these girls' heads. They all started screaming and yelling like animals, saying that all these fans were pests and had to be eliminated immediately, because their idol had messed up their Gage's chart rankings. The other group had no idea what was about to hit them. They were just about to finish off the boss when Song Fei's army suddenly charged in as if they were the enemy. The healer from the other side tried to reason with them, but the fangirls were too far gone. In reality, the other group wasn't even fans of the rival idol. Song Fei had just lied, but it was too late, as they immediately killed the girl too and started chanting their idol's name while taking down the boss. Song Fei started drooling when he saw all the loot and thanked his family in an attempt to manipulate them. They all started crying, saying he never had to thank them, and the guy began to pick up his loot. Shadow was also watching them. He immediately went into stealth mode, and before Song Fei could realize what had happened, he was dead amidst the cries of his fangirls, and screaming when they saw their Geji's headless corpse. Shadow then used the Blooming Curse, and a strange flower bloomed from within Song Fei's body, but this time, no one could save him. Song Fei returned to his town and started screaming because it felt like Shadow had some kind of grudge against him, but he didn't know why. He wondered if it was because Shadow was jealous that he had more female fans. Song Fei crawled on the floor, unable to believe that Shadow could be a simp, chasing him just because the girl he liked was in Song Fei's party. Then a notification on his computer popped up, showing his tradable lifespan dropping from 400 to 370, and it continued to drop non-stop. He was in a dilemma when his fangirls ran over, and immediately started screaming that something was wrong. They told him that Shadow had used a skill, and a blood-red flower had appeared on his corpse, looking like it was absorbing something from him. Song Fei couldn't understand how a flower growing on his corpse could drain his lifespan. This could only mean one thing: Shadow was intentionally trying to kill him permanently. He immediately said he needed to log out, or else he would lose all his lifespan. Then his family told everyone that they should all log out now and that he would buy some lifespan in the real world and convert it into gear. Once they were fully equipped and stronger, they would come back and fight him. All the girls immediately agreed to their master's command, while Song Fei swore to himself that it wasn't over. He had trained hard for 2.5 years to get to where he was today, and he refused to believe he couldn't crush Shadow with money. Meanwhile, Shadow stood over the corpses of everyone he had killed and received the murderer title, which was at level 4. Apparently, death would now cost him 96% of his current lifespan, and Shadow farmed about 1,000 days of lifespan from Song Fei and his group, but the absorption stopped. It seemed they had all logged out. Meanwhile, Yishu's owl and she herself were watching Shadow, and they couldn't believe this was the power of the #1 ranked player, Shadow, and it was truly terrifying. Shadow then asked her if Song Fei had logged out, and Yishu replied that they had. So he asked her to keep an eye on them and to let him know as soon as they all came back online. Shadow then said he had a gold tier priest skill, Holy Judgment Sword, and asked if she wanted it. Yishu said she did, so he told her to wait for him in town. He said the skill book was worth 500 days of lifespan, but he would sell it to her for half price if she agreed to one condition. Yishu suddenly backed away, saying she doesn't sell her body, but this left Shadow a bit confused, because he didn't mean it like that. He just wanted her to join a party as their permanent healer. This seemed like a good offer to Yishu, but she asked if they would think she was too weak, or she would end up complaining to him about their weaknesses. Shadow said that was fine. They were a pretty strong team and he would contact them right now. Meanwhile, Wang Wei was on the battlefield killing monsters. When he asked Xiao Yu to cure his poison quickly, Xiao Yu didn't even know what cure poison meant. And Song Fei reminded her that all priests have a cleanse skill and she should hurry up because he couldn't hold on much longer. Suddenly, Xiao Yu seemed to realize what skill it was and she confidently told everyone to watch her perform. But she pointed her staff in the wrong direction and nearly killed a teammate, after which she said that she missed. But it was too late as Wang Wei had died from the poison. Back in town, everyone distanced themselves from Xiao Yu, and Wang Wei thought they had to replace their healer. But where else would they find a hidden class healer now? Because the good ones had already joined other parties. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu was happy because this wasn't a difficult game for her, and reaching level 4 was a piece of cake. She just had to keep this up, and she would meet her brother, Song Fei, very soon. Suddenly, Wang Meng received a message from Shadow saying he knew someone, a female priest with the white bird hidden class, and asked if he wanted her in his party. Wang Meng said he trusted Shadow's word, and since he was the one recommending her, of course they would take her. Shadow said she was in Ember Town and few people grind there, so they just had to go there and they could level up together. The party leader thought it was a great idea since they were planning to change locations anyway, and Shell Town was too crowded. He then looked at Xiao Yu and said they were thinking of moving to a higher level area and that it was too dangerous for her at her current level, so they wouldn't be taking her with them. Xiao Yu couldn't believe what she was hearing, and she immediately started saying that she could still contribute a little. But before she could finish her sentence, they all took off, only managing to wish her good luck. Xiao Yu immediately showed her true colors and cussed them out, saying that if they wanted to kick her out, they should have just said it to her face instead of making up excuses. Besides, she was sick of those guys anyway, and that she would go find the pro player Shadow to carry her. Meanwhile, in Ember Town, Wang Meng had arrived, and he paid 800 days of lifespan for the gear he bought last time. Wang Meng and his team still owed Shadow some lifespan, but he promised to pay the rest when Captain Ann arrived. Meanwhile, Shadow was wondering if Captain Ann was the same person, when suddenly Captain An Yu arrived, and he immediately realized it was her. Her player ID was Execution, and she had a unique hidden class, Dragon Knight. She was one of the top 20 global powerhouses in his previous life. She is one of the pillars of the official forces of Great Xia and a nightmare to foreign hostile forces. Captain Ann remarked that it was great to meet someone as talented as him, and she admired his combat skills. Shadow felt a bit nervous, because this was the first time he'd met someone ranked higher than him in this damn game in his past life, and commented on his leveling speed, saying it was insane, and she asked if he had any secrets. She even joked that he might be a time traveler or a regressor because of the way he played the game. But Shadow was thinking about how in his past life, this woman was on a different team than Wang Meng. Even so, he still received 500 days of lifespan from Wang Meng's team because they owed him from before. Shadow also realized that an Yu had secured a lot of tradable lifespan on behalf of the officials of Zhonghai City, and then said that if he had any more equipment to sell later, she and the government officials would take it all. She also said that all of Zhonghai City's official lifespan was on her, so he didn't need to kill her for it. Shadow said that he wasn't that short-sighted and that cooperating would be mutually beneficial. That's why Yu praised him, saying she knew Shadow was a confident and intelligent man. But Shadow immediately realized that her every word was a probe. Just as the rumors said, and Yu appeared innocent, but she was as sharp as a blade and ruthless when necessary. Having her as an ally would save him a lot of trouble, especially since she was part of Great Xia's liaison force in the real world. Back to Song Fei. The female fans had a lively group chat where they talked about their beloved idol, and they all woke up to an announcement saying that the lifespan in the game Divine Armament was completely real, and if it reached 0, they would also die in the real world. They all realized that they had foolishly given all their tradable lifespan to Song Fei and started crying because now they only had a few years left. They started to realize how reckless they had been while playing the game. A female mage thought about how she always charged forward in battles, acting like a tank mage. She killed a lot of people but also died over and over. Now she only had 1 day of lifespan left. She looked at the announcement and fell into denial, refusing to believe it. But then another important announcement caught her attention. It said that Song Fei was buying lifespan. She thought this was great. She could go to him and he would surely help her. She started putting on her best lingerie, saying she wanted to wear something that made her feel confident, so that Song Fei would complement her outfit and her body. On the other hand, Xiao Yu woke up in her house, and she was confused, unable to tell if she was in reality or still in the game. She checked her messages and saw that the exchange rate for 1 day of lifespan was about 5,000 yuan, and she had 200 days of lifespan, which meant she was already a millionaire. She suddenly remembered that Shadow was actively hunting and killing Song Fei, and that it had happened 3 times. She started to tremble and cry when she read that if their lifespan reached 0 in the game, they would die in the real world. She wasn't worried about herself. She was worried about Song Fei because although he had over 100 years of non-tradable lifespan, after dying 3 times, he only had a little over 12 years left. She was also confused about why Shadow was targeting him, and from the group chat, she saw that he had killed Song Fei 3 times even while surrounded by dozens of people. He was terrifyingly strong. Then she saw a message from another female fan saying that Song Fei needed help and everyone in Zhanghai City should go sell their tradable lifespan to him. Right now, Song Fei was at Dodging Square and the buying rate for lifespan was 1 for 1,000. Xiao, you felt stressed because Dodging Square wasn't far from her, and she couldn't just sit back and watch. She needed to go help her beloved idol. Meanwhile, Shadow was destroying all these monsters as if it were child's play for him, and soon he reached level 10. His 4 main attributes increased by 2, and he received 5 free attribute points. And he also unlocked class advancement for being the first player to reach level 10. Within Zhanghai City, he received 7 reputation points. He was also the first player to reach level 10 in the entire country, earning him 14 reputation points. Not only that, he was the first to reach level 10 globally and received 21 reputation points. In addition, the teleportation function to the continent forsaken by the gods was now activated, and there was a global announcement stating that the player Shadow was the first to reach level 10. Everyone's jaws dropped, but they weren't surprised. However, they were still concerned that Shadow was the first one who could kill a gold-grade boss, and also the first to reach level 10. People had also just heard that the very same boss had killed a minor idol several times. There were about 1.5 billion people in Tianju, and none of them could keep up with him. Speaking of Shadow, meanwhile, he used 13 evolution points on his initial skill, Backstab, and upgraded it from Platinum to Emerald. Its passive effect was that when attacking a target from behind, the damage increased from 40% to 50%. However, his tradable lifespan was about 7,000 days, which was nowhere near enough because if he wanted to leave the starting town, he needed to gather 7 level 10 players to open the teleportation function to the Forsaken Continent of the gods. In reality, the highest level at the moment was 7, so he needed to wait a bit longer. But this was all part of his plan, because now he could return to reality and settle the score with Song Fei. Then he disappeared and woke up in his room. He received a system notification asking if he wanted to consume tradable lifespan to extract his abilities into reality, and he selected it. There were 5 things he could do. First, he could extract his class and level. He could also extract equipment, skills, bloodlines, and divinity. He chose to extract his class by consuming 1,000 days of lifespan. Then he also extracted up to level 2, consuming another 2,000 days of lifespan. Next were his abilities, but logically, the higher the skill's level, the more lifespan it cost to extract, and it increased exponentially. He didn't expect that the lifespan consumed to extract a skill was based on the skill's initial level rather than his evolved skill level. The Shadow skill only required a base of 900 days. The extracted skill was synchronized with the game, and since it was at the Platinum level, it comforted him to know he now had that level of power in real life. Likewise, he then consumed another 20,262 days of lifespan for Abyss of Horror and extracted the skill, Silver Grade Poison Dart. Now he only had about 13 days of lifespan left, so for the time being, he couldn't extract any more abilities. Besides, he had extracted the platinum-grade Shadow skill for the price of a low-level skill, so it was actually a huge bargain. He could feel the power flowing through his veins because now his basic physical stats were double that of a normal person, and his agility stat was as high as 32 points, surpassing human limits. He was now a living weapon, and with his infinite invisibility and poisoned darts that could be shot up to 14 meters away, he knew he would soon find the chance to finish off Song Fei. He didn't even need to look for that so-called genius idol, because everything Song Fei did could be easily tracked online. Seeing Song Fei frantically buying up lifespan, he realized the idol was planning to settle the score with him. After the game update, he knew it would only take him 10 minutes to get to where Song Fei was, but then his phone started buzzing, and it was Hu Shupeng, the arrogant supervisor from his company who was always throwing his weight around. He was angry with Chinfong for not answering his phone and said that a young lady, actually his boss, had her eye on his body. But Shadow didn't want to think about work right now, because he knew the real world was about to end. He tossed his phone aside and went invisible again, saying that everyone would soon realize this game was real. The stadium was like a cult gathering, where Song Fei sat proudly on stage while all his female fans chanted his name and blushed because their idol was right in front of them. He sat like a king with his assistant by his side. She asks about Shadow killing him 3 times in the game, then tells him not to worry, because she's already had someone investigate Shadow's real identity. Song Fei asks her for an update, and the girl says she has sent people to the town to approach him, and offered him a figure he couldn't refuse, so they will wait until he returns to reality to collect the money, and then they'll capture him and let Song Fei teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Song Fei then tells her to notify him because he wants to witness it firsthand and have the pleasure of hurting Shadow himself. He also mentions that he's heard about the Star Corporation using the same method to control some players and make them work for free. Apparently, these corporations use their money to make offers to players in the game, money in exchange for lifespan, but when people leave the game to collect that money, they are captured, tortured, and forced to work by the corporation in exchange for their freedom. Song Fei feels confident about his plan to buy lifespan, but then suddenly a man on the fence starts yelling at the girls, telling them not to sell their lifespan indiscriminately, because according to the official announcement, if their lifespan in the game reaches 0, they will also die in real life. Song Fei knows this but continues to brainwash his fans into selling their lifespan, and even murder. He just sighs as if it's just another normal day for him. When someone causes a disturbance, he stands up and offers a fake apology, but all the girls scream that he doesn't have to because he did nothing wrong, and they are happy to give him what he needs. Song Fei is just like every other influencer, who manipulates his audience into thinking all he wants is love and peace for everyone. But in reality, his only concern is his own survival. He lies, saying he is actively cooperating with the authorities and has been working hard in the game so that he can use his personal assets to acquire lifespan, hoping to become a quality idol in the game and someone worthy of everyone's affection. Then he starts shedding crocodile tears, and every girl in the stadium begins to cry with him, thinking their idol is so kind and thoughtful for contributing to society in such a way. But all the girls are deeply manipulated and believe he has nothing to apologize for. They all then turn against the man who is trying to make them see reason, the female tank mage, who is always the first to attack anyone who dares to oppose Song Fei, is also the first to defend Song Fei in real life. She jumps on stage and acts like she's Song Fei's #1 female fan, but even the idol himself is scared and disgusted by her. She says she is willing to sacrifice herself for her idol, even after logging out. When warned that her lifespan is less than 1 day, she insists the announcement is untrue, and says they need to be determined to sacrifice their lives for their brother, because if they aren't willing, then they don't deserve to love him. Her words somehow get through to the other girls, and they all start chanting that, even if they only have a few days left to live, they will donate it all to Song Fei. Song Fei then manipulates her again, saying he's so lucky to have someone like her, and she starts bawling her eyes out, thinking she has done something extraordinary in her life. But then suddenly, someone throws a poisoned dart, and it goes right through Song Fei's head. A piece of his brain explodes, and he falls onto his superfan. Everyone is shocked, and within a few seconds of realizing what just happened, they all start screaming and fleeing the scene. Song Fei's assistant is suddenly pushed away by a bodyguard, telling her to run and get out of there immediately. She doesn't look back at her boss lying dead on the ground. Too terrified to do so, she sees that when Song Fei dies, an orb of light appears over his body. Then the orb of light vanishes into thin air. It must have been taken by someone. Apparently, the skills from the cursed game that killed Song Fei were the same ones used here in real life, and only one person has this method. Just as the assistant realizes this, another poisoned dart pierces through her head, killing her instantly. She was right. Shadow had come to deal with this pest once and for all. The atmosphere in Johnny City was grim, because Song Fei died so publicly and tragically, but that's not all. His crazed fan, the one who donated her lifespan to him, also died within minutes. The police report stated that the cause of Song Fei's death was supernatural, but no one really believed it. Xiao Yu couldn't believe that she had just witnessed her beloved big brother die on stage. He was alive just a few minutes ago, and now he was gone. She knew that stealthy knife throwing was a skill from the game Divine Dominion. Xiao Yu's friend asks if she thinks someone assassinated their idol, since she heard that Shadow had already killed Song Fei 3 times in the game. But she wonders how the powers could manifest in reality so soon. Xiao Yu starts thinking and realizes the rumor could be true. Shadow had killed him multiple times in the game and seemed to have a personal vendetta against him. If her dead idol had any enemies, it would be him. Besides, knife throwing and using an invisibility cloak were abilities Shadow used. That means he killed her idol. She starts crying hysterically, saying her world is now lifeless. Shadow was able to use his powers from the game in real life, but she still wanted to get close to him, to be right by his side. She vows to become stronger at all costs, because from now on, she has only one goal: to get revenge for her brother Song Fei and kill Shadow. Meanwhile, Chinfong is calmly eating noodles and filling his stomach. In the game, even if a player is invincible in real life, playing the game still consumes energy, so when they get hungry, they have to eat. He receives a message from his boss, saying that if he doesn't come in right now, he'll be fired and won't receive last month's salary. The message came from his colleague, Yang Xiaoya, a good-natured but weak person who was often bullied in his past life. She was a member of the high-level god-slaying guild, but not a good or strong player. Out of kindness, Shadow tells her not to bother with their boss anymore, as there's no point in going to work. They should spend their time grinding levels in the game. Xiaoya asks if he knows any tips about the game, since everyone keeps saying it's difficult, and he gave her a friendly piece of advice that no matter which class she chooses, she should put all her points into agility at the beginning. Then she asks him how his grinding is going and how much he's earned. Shadow can't tell her the truth, so he says he hasn't earned much and has spent almost all of it. Xiaoya laughs and says he must have bought himself a car and a house already. No wonder you're not coming back to work. Chinfong, on the other hand, thinks his boss is the real piece of trash, but the bigger problem is his boss, Chen Shishi. She is the daughter of the CEO of the Chen Corporation, the company where he used to work, but she's notorious for her predatory behavior. She targets the men under her command. She goes to hotels with middle-aged foreign men, then she started targeting him, but Chinfong had no interest in selling his body to someone like her. Chen Shishi was a xenophile and looked down on her own countrymen. So in his past life, not long after the game launched, she left the country and went to North America to pursue her dream of creating the Alice in Wonderland Association. She only focused on the country's decline. In his past life, she even brought endless trouble to the country and to his god-slaying guild, which is why he knew he had to get rid of her before she left the country, because once she was in North America, she wouldn't be as easy to deal with. If Chen Shishi died, then the Alice in Wonderland Association would never be formed, and there were rumors that many of its founders were currently having illicit affairs with her, so once she disappeared, the founders would fall apart and their communication would cease. Just then, his phone started ringing. It was his younger sister. When he answered, she was screaming like a spoiled brat. She said he didn't know how to answer the phone and that she thought he had died in that damn game. Then she started rambling that since he was unfortunately still alive, she just wanted to let him know she had earned enough money to buy a house, so don't you ever contact me again. Chinfong calmly asked what she wanted him to do, and she said that he should never try to find where she lives because she is independent now and won't turn back. Chinfong told her that it didn't matter anymore and said he was hanging up. This made her even angrier, but he didn't want to listen anymore. He walked out of the store, knowing he had to get back to grinding levels. It wouldn't be long before players reached level 10 and discovered that abilities could be brought into the real world, and when that happened, the world would no longer be peaceful. Back in the game, Xiao Du was still acting like a spoiled brat when her friend told her to apologize to her brother, so he could help her in the game, but she was very stubborn and resentful. She had sold the life force to the Chen Corporation for 2 million and was now rich. She even bought a house so they could live together. She had a plan, and that plan was to get close to Shadow soon, and right now, that was her only goal. Just then, her old classmate walked over, still trying to impress her. He gave her the assassin skill book she wanted, and demanded what she had promised. She said she would satisfy his little desire later, but in her heart, she was thinking he was just a bootlicker. All she needed was to get close to Shadow, so she wouldn't have to talk to trash like him anymore. Then, she contacted her old boss, Wang Meng, and told him that she had an assassin skill book with a control skill, and asked if he could see if Shadow wanted it. She said she would give it to him for free, but in reality, it was just part of her plan. She thought the skill book would be the thing to bring her and Shadow closer together. Once they were close and had a bond, she would stay by his side, healing him, helping him clear out enemies and leveling up together. She would make him feel cared for and help him in every way until he trusted her. She even imagined having a relationship with him, but once she was strong enough and had his trust, she would kill him with her own hands and gouge out his eyes to avenge her brother, Song Fei. While she was lost in her little scheme, Mang replied that Shadow didn't like the book and didn't need it. She should just keep it and sell it for cash instead, and this burst the delusional bubble she was living in. On the other side, Shadow was back in the game and hunting again when he heard someone fighting. He saw that the boss they were fighting wasn't an ordinary one, but a dangerous golden arthropod, a level 8 boss. The whole team was trying their best, but it wasn't enough. Shadow recalled from his past life that this boss had a level 2 anti-stealth ability, which meant his stealth skill was useless. Just then, the boss turned its head and looked at Shadow and started moving towards him. The assassin also rushed in to attack. He swung his sword, unleashing multiple slashes, and quickly realized that attacking from outside the opponent's line of sight would be much more effective if the enemy could see through his stealth. It would become useless then, and his damage would be greatly reduced. But thanks to his legendary Divine Salvation skill, the weak points on the golden arthropod's head and heart were amplified by 200%. So out of the 9 slashes from Flash Shadow kill, 3 of them landed right on the weak points, dealing triple the damage. Meanwhile, another player with a covered face was watching him. She thought the damage from his shadow kill was insane, as the golden arthropod's health dropped by 1/5 in an instant. She watched as Shadow threw poison darts, but since they were only silver grade, the damage wasn't very effective. He made a mental note that he still needed to upgrade his profession to get a higher level of stealth. He was still thinking when the arthropod raised its claw to strike, and the girl yelled for him to be careful. Shadow heard her and moved at the last second. The girl couldn't believe someone could move that fast, and it was clear that he understood the boss's attack patterns. Shadow remembered that no matter how many times he and his friends tried in his past life, they could never defeat this boss. And he had learned that this regional boss wasn't the type that could be defeated with brute force. You had to read its moves and feel its rhythm, and once he learned that, he became one of the 100 strongest assassins. Then, the arthropod suddenly turned to flee. But Shadow showed no mercy, delivering another slash and a poison dart. He killed it and its head fell off. He received 6,400 experience points, 7 evolution points, and 497 tradable days of life. He used the greedy hand skill to get an additional 21 evolution points and another 497 tradable days of life. He also unlocked a new assassin skill, the Platinum Rank Darklight Shield. It actively converts all of the user's evasion into damage and creates an immunity shield for 8 seconds. Once the shield breaks or the time runs out, the evasion rate returns to normal. Shadow noticed a skill book with a 75% evasion rate, the Epic Grade Phantom Blur. Next to it was the Darklight Shield, which could stack up to 3 layers of damage reduction. With this, dealing with bosses would be much easier, and it also gave him the option to upgrade the shield straight to Epic Grade. He used 6 evolution points to evolve his Platinum Darklight Shield to Epic Grade Level 1. The shield now provided 7 layers of damage reduction. That meant he could enter higher level areas earlier than most players. With his remaining 22 points, he turned his attention to the poison darts. 16 points pushed the skill from Silver Grade to Mythic Grade, and its toxicity increased from 50% to 80%. 3 upgrades had nearly doubled its power, and with only a 5-second cooldown, its sustained damage could rival that of Shadow's Serpent. 2 pieces of assassin-type equipment also dropped, and he equipped them immediately. The first was the Gold Rank Swift City, increasing agility by over 20 and movement speed by over 20%. The second was the Heavy Crimson Leather Gauntlets, another gold rank item that gave 18 physical defense along with all elemental and physical resistance. Together, the new equipment increased his firepower by 55%, reducing the area of effect firepower duration from 12 seconds to 7.7, and added 51 damage, 106 physical damage, and 1,517 health. With these stats combined with the Darklight Shield, his attack tempo remained stable, and his survivability increased sharply while he was still evolving his skills. The group from before ran over, amazed at his speed. They asked if he had any skill books for sale. Shadow explained there was one for mages, Frost Eruption, a gold rank group skill that shoots an ice orb capable of bouncing 10 times. However, the price for it was 800 days of lifespan. They complained that it was too expensive and mentioned that someone had sold a level 5 gold skill before. Shadow corrected them, saying it was actually a level 7 skill. Once upgraded, its damage increased by over 40%, so 800 days of lifespan wasn't expensive at all. A girl with a covered face spoke up, saying she'd buy it, and the transaction was completed. Shadow then left. He hadn't finished clearing the town's boss yet, so he decided to spread some rumors in the small town, gathering information on its location and confirming if there were any gold rank bosses there. If there were, it could provide him with an endless source of combat and push his growth to the maximum. Just then, a message came from Wang Meng saying that Xiao Yu from his previous team was giving Shadow a book for free and asked if he wanted it. Shadow assumed it was just a bronze book, but he also knew his sister well enough to be suspicious of her intentions. She never gave anything away for free without a scheme. There were already rumors outside that Shadow had killed Song Fei, and Xiao Yu suddenly giving him a skill book only made the situation more suspicious. He told Meng to just keep that piece of trash and check it himself. However, the suspicion remained. He wondered if Xiao Yu was trying to impress him or wanted revenge for Song Fei, but either way, he decided to keep his distance. He then told Meng to come to the town, have money ready, and be prepared to go because he had something to sell. Before he could end the conversation, the group's leader stopped him and asked a question Shadow had anticipated. "Did you kill Song Fei?" Shadow answered without hesitation, "Yes." But Meng knew that when Song Fei died, Shadow was offline, and that detail, combined with the timing and motive, showed Meng that the authorities had figured out most of the truth. The question now was whether they were going to arrest him. Shadow considered the timing. In just 2 more hours, other players would reach level 10, and abilities from this world would begin to transfer to reality. Once that happened, the truth couldn't be hidden, so he decided this was the perfect time to test how the Great Xia authorities would react to in-game murders. When Shadow returned to town, the captain asked him directly if he had killed Song Fei, and Shadow admitted it without hesitation, and she started to laugh. Instead of arresting him, she explained that they had conducted a thorough investigation and discovered he was the only suspect. However, they also discovered that Song Fei and Xiang Li had conspired against him and that the dodging group had been kidnapping players and forcing them to work. In her view, killing them was self-defense. Shadow thought to himself that these authorities weren't as friendly to murderers as they were currently letting on. They couldn't identify him, so they would continue to cooperate, but he knew the situation was unstable. In his previous life, he had cooperated fairly with the authorities and had a clean record. But this time, he had directly killed one person in Xiang Li, and that could change everything. He wanted to see how much his rebirth had changed the game's outcome, so he decided to sell his unused platinum equipment. The government was willing to buy all kinds of equipment and skills, and since they had enough lifespan to pay, he could sell in larger quantities. When everyone saw the platinum equipment, they got excited and asked if he had soloed a platinum boss, since there had been no global announcement. Shadow told them the truth, that he had gotten lucky with a jade chest, and had even bought a jade skill book. Yi Shuai confirmed his story, saying she had seen him open that chest with her own eyes. Shadow called her Little Zhu, which made her complain. Since he always called her Little Hei, she asked why Yi Shuai got a different kind of name. Shadow asked if she wanted a different nickname, and she blushed even more. Captain An commented that while they were struggling with silver bosses, he was casually getting platinum and jade loot. Shadow then explained the prices: a platinum archer skill book for 2,500 days, and a platinum warrior weapon for 15 days, a platinum skill book for 3,000 days, and a gold skill book and equipment for 8,000 days. He offered to keep the discounted price and sell the remaining 25 platinum skill books and pieces of equipment for 16,000 days. Captain An accepted the deal immediately. Wang Meng felt nervous because she didn't even haggle, but An insisted the price was fair and said she would also pay off the small debt Wang Meng owed Shadow. The deal was done, and Shadow agreed that Captain An had made the right choice. After the transaction, his lifespan increased by 10,000 days, which converted to about 60 years. This meant a total of about 22,000 days, equivalent to about 400 million in real-world currency value. For the government, the cost was huge, but the returns were even greater. The equipment and skill books allowed the Shanghai city authorities to quickly build strong teams. The stronger the authorities were, the less trouble they would face, and through this exchange, Shadow also secured an advantage for the international confrontations that were inevitably coming. That's when An raised a concern with Shadow, telling him that the dodging group had imprisoned players and asking if he would join them to rescue those people. Shadow figured they were either trying to recruit him or planning to use this to let his killing of Song Fei slide, but he wasn't interested and refused. He confirmed their suspicions by admitting that he had used his in-game power to kill both Song Fei and Xiang Li. He warned them that once players reached level 10, they would start consuming lifespan and would be able to bring their abilities into reality. He advised them to understand the implications and make good use of their time. Captain An realized that once the dodging group's players reached level 10, that their rescue mission would become much more difficult. After giving this warning, Shadow left and then told Wang Meng they should split up since their team was now high level. Staying together would be a waste of damage since mobs could be killed in one hit. If they split up and each led a team, their leveling speed would increase dramatically. Their goal was to get everyone to level 10, then log out and share information with those who were still offline. People noticed Shadow was setting up shop again, but this time he was buying instead of selling. He was offering 30 days for silver boss coordinates and 100 days for gold boss coordinates. A young man who used to serve Xiang Li approached Shadow and said that his young miss had promised him 300 million in shares in the dodging group if he agreed to carry her. He insisted this was a golden opportunity that would never come again, so Shadow should cherish it. Shadow replied that the kid must not have logged out yet because he had killed Song Fei and had also killed Xiang Li in real life. The young man was stunned, insisting he had just met her and describing her as very beautiful. He said it was a pity and a waste, but also admitted she had it coming because she had tried to capture Shadow in real life and enslave him. She was killed right on the spot. He further explained that the first time she offered to pay Shadow 10 million to carry her, Shadow refused. Later, tempted by the money, the kid had tried to find her, hoping to pocket 5 million, but when he went to collect the money in real life, the dodging group's thugs knocked him out. When he woke up, he was locked in a basement, whipped for days, and forced to farm lifespan and lure in more victims. For that reason, if Xiang Li was really dead, then she got what she deserved. He said he used to laugh at Shadow for his foolishness, but now he realized he was the fool. Shadow looked at him and said that judging by his expression, he was probably the type to lick her boots and help her kidnap lots of people. The young man denied it, but it was too late, as the authorities had already moved in to deal with him. Just then, someone hiding near the clock gave Shadow the coordinates for a silver boss, and they completed a transaction. Later, in another town, the Ace of Spades arrived with her two favorite companions. Rumor had it she was Qin Shishi, the heir to the Qin group in real life, and every man around her trembled, because she had killed countless players and mercilessly stolen their lifespan. To her, this game was just another shopping trip she could pay her way through, by spending her own money on the best equipment and skills, recruiting a top-tier warrior, and hunting down players for their lifespan. That method was all too easy for someone with money and impossible for those without it. She was still annoyed that the game had made her miss a flight. She should have been enjoying herself in North America by now, instead of being stuck in this city, unable to leave the country. She looked at the trembling men before her, calling them weaklings, and told her bodyguards they were much more charming and masculine. She imagined trying them out when she returned to reality, and could barely hide her impatience. She asked if Song Fei was really dead, but she didn't care much about him, as she'd played with him once and he had only lasted a minute. Right now, she was focused on Shadow. Since he was a local and ranked number 1, he was worthy of her attention. If he could kill someone like Song Fei, then killing an ordinary target would be a piece of cake. So she decided to take this opportunity to meet him. She logged out to call her contact for Shadow, and as she went, she posted an offer of 3,000 days of lifespan. Cash might not tempt Shadow, but lifespan would. And all she was asking was for him to snap his fingers and kill one small target. Her target was a man who had rejected her, Chinfong, and she wanted him dead. In real life, Xiao Yu had joined Zhang Wei's team, but she was as incompetent as ever. The scrawny kid asked her to heal faster next time so he wouldn't come so close to kicking the bucket. However, Xiao Yu acted sassy and dismissive. She told him not to yell in her face and that he should be grateful. He had no choice but to argue with her, but she suddenly logged out, saying she was hungry and asking her friend Yan Yan to join her. The boy remembered how she used to sweetly call him a master player, but now she was acting so rudely. Ever since meeting Shadow, she had become arrogant, but he believed that sooner or later, her arrogance would be torn to shreds. In the real world, Xiao Yu had moved into a luxurious apartment, but she woke up starving. She discovered that all the delivery places were closed and there were no drivers available, because everyone was engrossed in the game. She suddenly remembered how Chen Feng used to cook for her at home, and she never had to lift a finger. She quickly pushed that thought aside, telling herself that food was nothing compared to freedom. She convinced herself that she was strong, the best, and could live better without her brother. Meanwhile, Shadow wasn't thinking about Xiao Yu at all. He was busy fighting another silver-tier crab and struck it to the ground. In just over 1 hour, he had killed more than 4 silver-tier bosses, each granting him 16 evolution points. The item drops from an average silver-tier boss amounted to 3,500 days of lifespan, allowing him to equip only gold-tier items and above. His cooldown reduction rate had increased from 55% to 75%, reducing the cooldown of instant Shadow Slash from 12 seconds to 6.8. There were no platinum-tier bosses near the outskirts of Safety Town, so gold-tier equipment was the current limit. The only way to advance was to upgrade his class with evolution points. Shadow also remembered that future platinum-tier bosses had at least level 2, anti-stealth. He needed to advance quickly and reach stealth level 3, which meant saving up around 20,000 experience points. Only with a stealth level of 3 or higher could he reduce the risk of fighting platinum-tier bosses. In his past life, it took a 20-person raid party with perfect coordination to defeat a platinum-tier boss. Now, he decided to return to town and sell his loot to the government. His goal was to get ahead of everyone and claim the world's first platinum-tier boss kill for himself. Back in town, he bought another boss's coordinates, paying 105 years of tradable lifespan. Just then, someone approached him, saying there was an assassination contract. It was a real-world target, and the pay was very generous. Shadow ignored him, but the man followed, insisting the job was simple. All he had to do was kill someone named Chinfong, and the man would even provide the address. He said it was easy money. This made Shadow pause, because he was Chinfong. He asked about the offer and who was behind it. The man refused to answer, and only said the payment was 3,000 days of tradable lifespan. Shadow quickly calculated that it was worth around 50 million and realized some powerful person wanted him dead. This person couldn't be from his current or previous life because it was too early for enemies to appear. In his past life, the grudges only surface in the mid to late game. The only one with both the motive and the means to target him this early was Chen Shishi. Only she would dare put a bounty on Chen Feng's head before the game truly began. If Chen Shishi really wanted Chen Feng gone before the game started, she would have done it sooner. The fact that she waited suggested this assassination contract had another purpose. Her real goal was likely to connect with Shadow, while killing Chen Feng was just an added bonus because he had once rejected her. Shadow laughed at her petty scheme, thinking she was interesting. He had been planning to find her, but now she had come to him. He accepted the deal on the condition that half the payment be made up front and he would be the one to decide when the job gets done. The messenger started sweating as he needed permission to make the deposit. After getting approval, Shadow received 1,500 days of tradable lifespan. He considered it interest and figured she could wait because he'd be looking for Chen Shishi soon enough. The messenger also provided him with the target's location and details, which turned out to be his own address. Shadow left, promising results soon. Just then, a girl named Naibai stopped him, saying she heard he was buying boss coordinates. She offered him the location of a gold-tier boss and suggested they both confirm the payment. Bai told him to follow her north of town. The distance was a bit far, but she offered to lead the way. She explained the boss was a plague bearer, which meant she had encountered it herself. She then asked if he wanted a healer to come along, as the boss dealt low poison damage, but Shadow refused, saying he just needed her to lead the way. The plague bearer was indeed gold tier and had a poison aura that drained health per second from anyone within range. To defeat it, Shadow had to end the fight quickly, but for him, a few skills would be enough to handle it. Bai led Shadow to a cave, explaining that all other teams had been defeated by her party, but they couldn't take down the boss themselves. She then pointed to the gold-tier black bear boss. Shadow completed the transfer, while thinking the poison could be avoided with dodges and his Shadow Demon's 75% evasion would be very useful. However, Bai didn't run. She looked guilty and admitted that she needed to warn him, because it was actually a trap. Once he started the fight, people would show up to kill him, and they had a level 2 anti-stealth item. She said they had forced her to pretend to approach him, try to find out his real-life identity, and then betray him. She confessed because she was being blackmailed in real life, and actually wanted those people dead. Shadow thought it was a stupid plan, but he still asked who the mastermind was. Bai revealed it was Dongfang Zhan, whose in-game ID was Shenyun. She explained that he had already been killed by Shadow once. Shadow remembered that was the guy who had tried to ambush him, while he was fighting a previous gold-tier boss and had then tried to give him an assassin's book as an apology. Bai insisted that if Shadow was strong enough to kill Songfei, he could handle Dongfang too. Shadow replied that it wasn't his priority right now, as he was focused on killing the boss. At the same time, he didn't mind turning the tables, using Dongfang's plan against him and letting his men die here. Before he left, Bai tried to stop him, warning that they had brought around 18 people before and were wiped out in less than 30 seconds. The poison damage was extremely high, and she stressed that even if Shadow had poison resistance, he would still die. She was about to run, but then saw Shadow activate Blessing Release, Dark Strike Enhancement, and the Throat Slit effect. With one hit, he took out 2/3 of the gold-tier boss's health, dealing around 80,000 damage. He then backed off to a cliff, deciding not to finish the boss just yet. He planned to wait for the minions to arrive while his skills came off cooldown. When the minions rushed in, they couldn't find Shadow as he was still in stealth, so they turned on Bai. She quickly pulled out a golden shield and tried to hold her ground. Shadow noted that such a strong defense was rare at this stage, and few could penetrate it. Not wanting to waste any more time, he used Instant Somber Slash to wipe out the crowd, then cast Blooming Curse to drain their lifespan. Bai didn't understand what the flowers were for, but she was relieved she'd chosen not to go along with Dongfang's plan. If she had, she would have ended up like the rest of his minions. She then offered to add Shadow as a friend, saying that the next time Dongfang let his guard down, she could find out where he was. Shadow agreed and was about to leave, but she called out to him, saying that if there was any way to repay him, she would be honored to do it. Shadow wasn't interested and turned back to finish off the black bear. He reached level 7 and gained 555 days of lifespan. The tradable lifespan drained from more than 10 people. Didn't even compare to what the boss gave him, and he knew that instead of farming peacefully, they would just keep causing him trouble. Shadow then asked Bai if she wanted anything, but she just wanted to leave. He used his greedy hand and found a platinum-grade assassin skill book named Dark Moment. It was an assassin-class skill where the blade would release a burst of dark light, blinding all enemies within range. He realized that if he could blind enemies without relying on stealth, he could still trigger double damage, so no matter how high a boss's anti-stealth level was, his damage output would not be affected. He also received a dagger, a platinum-grade assassin weapon with an attack power of over 216 and a level 10 requirement to unlock. Its unique effect was that every attack carried a poison that would detonate after 3 seconds, dealing 50% of the attack's damage. Shadow felt satisfied with his haul, having accumulated about 98 evolution points. He knew he would soon be able to evolve his epic grade skill, his greedy hand, to legendary grade. Since he was only lacking another 10,000 experience points to level up, he decided to take care of it by grinding on small mobs. He slaughtered the small sea creatures, killing them all, and his class advanced to the first tier. With this advancement, he received a class attribute bonus, with his strength, focus, agility, and spirit stats all tripled. His stealth duration doubled, and he now felt incredibly powerful because he could activate stealth even while already in a stealth state. That meant as long as his cooldowns were fast enough, he could maintain permanent stealth. Out of sight, damage also increased from 2 times to 3 times. This first-class advancement already felt so overpowered that Shadow found it truly worth it. Shortly after, a game announcement declared that there were now 7 people in Starsea City who had reached level 10, and the teleportation gate to Gord, the Forsaken Continent, would open in 10 minutes. All players were advised to prepare their teams and gather at the coordinates if they wished to travel to the continent. Shadow held the first-place spot, followed by Grey Rose in second, and Wang Meng and his team in third. These names were all familiar to Shadow, but he remembered that in his past life, the rankings at this point were filled with foreign players. It seemed his influence from selling so many gold and platinum-grade items and skill books had started to change things. He wondered if the world would play out differently this time, and he was looking forward to it. Meanwhile, in the real world, the authorities arrested key members of the Industrial Crime Syndicate. A few of the 3 main members were still inside the game, Divine Armament, and their virtual bodies could not be apprehended. The inspector instructed his team to inform Captain Anne and ask her to find a way to force the suspects offline. The inspectors agreed that this method was very effective because even if the criminals hid in safe cities where they couldn't be attacked, their real bodies would still get hungry. When they logged out to eat, they could be captured. They noted that the high success rate was thanks to Shadow. Not only did he provide intelligence on the dodging syndicate, but he also warned them in advance about in-game abilities being brought into the real world. If they had acted any later, the ringleader, Zhang Li, and the others would have reached level 10 and withdrawn abilities, which would have made them nearly impossible to apprehend. Other countries had already faced small-scale unrest with thousands dead, but Jilin City remained stable because the authorities had in-game teams equipped with high-end gear, all thanks to Shadow. Back in the game, Bai commented on what a hero he was. Shadow was confused and asked what she meant. She explained that the officials had announced he was the one who helped bring justice to everyone, since Song San had colluded with the dodging syndicate, killing and imprisoning players. Shadow realized the officials were whitewashing his image, most likely because it would be more convenient for them if he cooperated. Shadow then asked if she had found Dongfang's real location. She replied that he hadn't logged out yet, so he'd have to wait for an update. To Shadow, that didn't matter right now. Dealing with that bastard, Dongfang was not his priority. His main goal was to get to the God-forsaken continent. To him, the current city area was nothing more than a novice village, and the real game only began once he set foot on the continent. Shadow activated stealth before teleporting, leaving the other players confused when they couldn't see him. However, they realized he had a stealth level higher than 2, along with level 2 anti-stealth. When he arrived on the continent, everything looked exactly the same as in his previous life. He appeared in the ruins of Starsea City, as players entering for the first time always arrived in the ruins of their corresponding city. The locations of these ruins were identical to the real world, though the reason for this had always been a mystery. As Shadow made his way through the ruins, a monster snuck up from behind him. He unleashed a Shadow Slash and killed the Earthshaker. In towns like these, there were no safe zones and monsters lurked everywhere, so players had to be constantly on guard. However, if they found a shelter hidden in the ruins, they could establish a stronghold and claim territory. Shadow knew that the best shelter in the Starsea City ruins was located in the northwest, which was where the God-slaying guild had based itself in his previous life. Determined to reclaim it, he headed in that direction. Wang Meng and his team also arrived on the continent and realized that the surroundings looked like familiar city ruins. They immediately recognized it as their city because the tower in Starsea City was still standing, right in front of them. Grey recalled that someone had mentioned Shadow was teleported here, but she couldn't see him anywhere. She began to search for him, but before she could, 2 worm monsters charged at the team. They immediately began to fight, and quickly realized that the regular monsters here were even stronger than silver-grade bosses in the small town. They fought with all their might until Gray finally used her prophetic fireball to defeat the enemy, and then asked Yishu to use her owl to scout the area. After surveying, she reported that the place was crawling with monsters, too many to count. Their recent battle had attracted even more enemies, and they were all heading straight for them. With no safe zones nearby, the team felt unsure of what to do, and the situation was starting to feel like a survival game. Gray then asked Yishu to try and find Shadow's location, since he had only arrived a few minutes ago and shouldn't be too far. Yishu replied that there was no sign of him, but she did see a brilliant light in the northwest. It looked like the glow of an item dropped by a monster. They immediately realized this must have been Shadow's doing, and since his inventory was probably full, he hadn't picked up the item. So, Anne urged everyone to follow that trail, knowing it would lead them to Shadow. Meanwhile, Shadow was farming monsters with ease, relying on his instant Shadow Slash, which dealt up to 20 or 30,000 damage. Since these monsters were weak compared to him, they died instantly. He soon arrived at the location of the shelter, but it was buried under rubble. Hidden beneath was a massive underground palace, a place that in his past life had been discovered much later. The palace contained over 1,000 resting rooms and more than a dozen large halls, making it the largest shelter in Starsea City, and eventually the base of his god-slaying guild. Now, however, this shelter was no different from a dungeon filled with mechanical monsters and guarded by a powerful boss. Just like any other shelter, the bigger the location, the stronger the guardian. In his previous life, after establishing the Godslayer Guild, he had to gather 3 teams of 18 elite members, all of them level 15 and fully equipped, and even then, they still nearly failed to conquer this place. But this time, things were different even though he was alone. He knew that he alone was enough to conquer the soul-purifying land. The monsters here were level 12 golden elemental spirits, and they all attacked him at once. What they didn't expect was that he was a highly skilled assassin. He used the moment of absolute darkness to blind them, and then took them down with instant Shadow Slash. One by one they fell without any resistance. Because they were blinded, all of his attacks dealt extra damage, and even his basic skills were enough to kill these level 12 monsters. Instantly, the main hall was cleared, but Shadow knew this was just the beginning. With over 1,000 rooms still full of enemies, he had many more battles ahead. Once he cleared out the mobs, he would have enough points to evolve the Greedy Hand once again, and after every enemy had fallen, the Guardian boss would appear, a fight he had been eagerly awaiting. Before long, all the level 10 players from across the world had arrived on the Forsaken Continent and immediately recognized the ruins of the cities they once belonged to. New York, London, Paris, everything was in ruins, and they were surrounded by thousands of monster guards. In the ruins of Shanghai, there were no safe towns. Wang Mang and his team were hiding and resting, exhausted from the sheer number of monsters they had to face. Their main goal wasn't to fight, but to find Shadow so he could help them. However, Captain Anne was lost in her own thoughts. She found herself constantly drawn to the mysterious assassin and his overwhelming power. While she was going on about him, Shadow himself was somewhere else, grinding levels and slaughtering monsters like it was nothing. Her words made Mang feel a little uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything at the moment. Xiaohei asked, what would happen if they died here, wondering where they would respawn. No one had an answer, so they all placed their hopes on Shadow, believing he might be the one to discover the truth. Mang then suggested to Captain Anne that the 6 of them shouldn't recklessly push forward. Instead, they should wait until everyone reached level 10 before moving on together. Meanwhile, Yisue continued to hunt for Shadow by following the trail of items he left behind. Eventually, she noticed the trail ended at a specific point, which meant Shadow must have disappeared there. She considered picking up the loot herself but decided against it, knowing the risk was too high. Mang then said he would contact Shadow first, and if Shadow confirmed he didn't need those items, only then would they take them. At the same time, Shadow cleared 4 large halls and over 1,000 small rooms, killing more than 400 monsters, including 4 bronze bosses and 2 silver bosses, gaining over 80,000 experience points, pushing his evolution points to 205. He only needed 5 more points to evolve his Greedy Hand. Just then, he received a message from Mang asking where he was, adding that they were nearby after following his trail. Mang added that he had taken some items but would pay him for them later. Shadow replied that he would contact Mang after he had a batch of equipment to sell. Mang then sent him their coordinates, telling him they were waiting in the shelter within the ruins. Just then, the Palace Guardian finally appeared. Soul Purifier Fesa, a level 15 platinum-grade boss. To claim ownership of the palace, Shadow had to defeat him. The monsters in the city ruins went up to level 15, but the Soul Purifier was the highest level monster and the strongest boss there, with 750,000 health and 3 different phases. In his past life, the Soul Purifier's Thunder Strike was extremely deadly. Even while wearing a full set of gold armor, Shadow had barely survived it. However, things were different this time. Before the boss could even unleash its Thunder Strike, Shadow struck first, using instant Shadow Slash and Throat Slit at the same time, tearing into the boss as his experience points skyrocketed. The Soul Purifier still managed to launch a Thunder Strike, but Shadow's high agility allowed him to dodge just in time. If that lightning bolt had hit him with his current defense and resistance stats, he would have been instantly killed. Skills from Platinum bosses have bonus accuracy, and while his evasion rate against normal monsters was 75%, leaving them with only a 25% chance to hit, a level 15 Platinum boss could attack with at least 50% accuracy. Fortunately, with his incredible agility, Shadow sprinted at full speed, moving at over 40 meters per second. As long as he stayed vigilant, he could keep dodging before the lightning bolt struck. Shadow vowed not to give the Soul Purifier a single opening. He unleashed another damage combo, instantly taking off 250,000 health, pushing the boss into Phase 2. During this phase, the boss becomes invulnerable and summons lightning orbs that target its enemy. To survive, the orbs must be destroyed first, otherwise, the boss will go berserk. In his previous life, Shadow's entire team was wiped out by that berserk attack, and his sister got so mad she quit playing. On their second attempt, he left her out of the raid, and the team managed to defeat the boss. Now, having been reborn, he no longer carried the burden of getting his sister killed. He used poison darts to destroy each orb, which also damaged the Soul Purifier, since a portion of its life force was contained within them. Once all the orbs were destroyed, the boss entered Phase 3. An electrical storm erupted from its body, signaling the start of the final phase, and the Soul Purifier began unleashing continuous AoE lightning attacks. In his past life, the guild had been forced to equip every member with lightning resistance gear, and even with 4 priests providing magic shields and heals, they had only barely survived the assault. This time, he didn't need such measures. He leaped into the air, reasoning that since the ground was constantly being struck by lightning, the best way was to fight from above. He combined Liberation with the Light Dark Shield, and attacked from the sky. He used Instant Shadow Slash, and the Soul Purifier, a level 15 Platinum boss, was turned into nothing but dust. He reached level 11 and received 10 free attribute points, along with 20 evolution points. He also became the first player in the world to defeat a Platinum grade boss, earning 10 reputation points. Most importantly, he became the master of the Soul Purification Land. This base didn't just provide in-game protection, but also acted as a warehouse, and everything belonging to it could be brought into the real world. In his past life, when the godforsaken game appeared, all real-world weapons began to corrode. Even the deadliest weapons, like nuclear bombs, became useless from the very first day. Other weapons, like fighter jets and tanks, remained operational for a short while, but within a month or two, they too turned into scrap metal. Eventually, all future battles in the real world came to depend entirely on power drawn from the godforsaken game. The bases brought into reality became safe havens, and their dense defenses of magical barriers turned them into impenetrable strongholds. He recalled many moments, both good and bad, but the terrible ones lingered the most because he had seen too many people come and go, and everything was rife with schemes and conflict. This time, he refused to repeat that path. He would grow strong on his own and keep climbing until he stood at the very peak, where no one could defeat him. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu was stuck at the very bottom, proving to be useless even there, constantly getting taken down by weak monsters. It was unbelievable how much she struggled to fight properly, even with a giant axe. This time, Xiao Yu couldn't contain her bratty nature and started arguing with Wei, blaming him for everything. The guy had no other choice but to leave the party. At that moment, Yan Yan was still stuck on the battlefield. Panicking because their tanker had left, she died and returned before she could even adapt. When she returned, she told Xiao Yu they should focus on farming small mobs first and level up slowly. She warned that their lifespans were running out and admitted she was terrified. Xiao Yu agreed on the surface but didn't really care. After that, the system made an announcement that the player Shadow had defeated the Platinum grade boss. Everyone was shocked, unable to believe he could be that strong. Xiao Yu immediately started blaming her teammates, saying they were too weak because they couldn't even kill a silver boss, while Shadow had become the first to kill a Platinum 1. As always, she refused to take any responsibility. Meanwhile, Shadow calmly prepared to use his attribute and experience points to level up. He focused entirely on increasing his agility, knowing that as long as his agility stat was high, combined with his infinite stealth ability, he could kill multiple bosses without taking a single hit. He also didn't expect a Platinum boss to reward him with 20 evolution points. With enough points in hand, he evolved the Hand of Greed from Epic to Legendary. As a passive effect, he received the Greedy Space, which gave him 100 inventory slots. This was an unbelievable reward, and he was eager to throw every item he had into storage. He used the Hand of Greed to pick up all the loot, and from that pile, He received 5 bonus items and another 100 evolution points. 2 of the items were for assassins and 1 was an assassin's skill book. Since he wasn't high enough level to use them yet, he stored them safely in his inventory for later. He then ordered his devout follower to gather everything into a pile for easy collection. With about 115 evolution points in hand, he upgraded his non-epic skills to epic level 1. This included stealth, enhanced backstab, and dark moment, all of which were now at the epic level. He also upgraded the blooming curse to legendary, and that upgrade led to a powerful discovery. The flowers could now also absorb non-tradable lifespan. Many high-level areas and enraged boss zones drained lifespan by the hundreds, or even thousands of times, and it was always the non-tradable lifespan that was used first. This meant that from now on, he would never run out of lifespan again. This was a god-tier skill. And Shadow was extremely pleased with what he had unlocked. Nabi then sent him a message, congratulating him on being the first person to kill a platinum boss. She added that she had good news, because Dongfang Xian had finally logged out, and she heard that his family was holding a gathering at the Jiang Port restaurant. They had brought a large amount of lifespan with them, and were preparing to convert it into condensed power in the game. She warned him that if he couldn't kill the entire family this time, she would be toast, and Shadow understood that as well. Shadow collected all the items his devout follower had gathered. With half of his inventory slots still empty, he decided to find Wang Meng and sell everything. When he arrived at the coordinates, Captain Anne ran up to him as if he were her boyfriend, but Shadow brushed that aside and got down to business. He said he would set the prices and they could decide whether to buy or not. He explained that many of the items were bronze tier, so he would sell them at a discounted price of 950 lifespan. Wang Meng didn't waste time haggling and paid him 2,000 lifespan up front. The deal was done quickly. Shadow then made a second offer, this time with silver, gold, and even platinum tier equipment for a total value of about 18,000 tradable lifespan. Without hesitation, Wang Meng happily transferred the funds to him, and the deal was complete. Xiao He looked at Shadow and asked if he was Doraemon, but Shadow ignored the comment. Instead, he gave them a tip. Beneath the stone statue in the center of the city ruins, there was a staircase leading to a teleportation circle back to the beginner's village. If they wanted to return to this place, they had to pay 500 lifespan. Once they returned here, re-entry would be free, so they had to think carefully before using it. With that advice, Shadow left, and then said that he must be a regressor, because there was no other way he could know such hidden information. Wang Meng shook his head and told her to stop hitting on him because it was giving everyone a headache and was just plain embarrassing. Shadow brought his abilities into the real world. His level and class evolution were synchronized. He sacrificed 27,000 days of lifespan to do this. He also extracted his other skills like Shadow Stealth, but at a higher level. He used more lifespan to raise Shadow Stealth to level 10 and materialized Enhanced Backstab, Hand of Greed, Instant Slash, Shadow Stealth, Blooming Curse, Dark Shield, Stealth Boots, and the Follower's Necklace into the real world. The Follower's Necklace didn't just reduce cooldowns, because the devout follower it summoned was nearly invincible outside the game. After using up all his reserves, he was left with only 486 days of tradable lifespan. So, his real-world power was now nearly on par with his in-game power, which was enough for the time being. However, he knew he had to gather more lifespan so that the next time he logged out, he could fully synchronize with the game. For now, he logged out and woke up in his bed. The first thing he realized was that Jian Shishi knew his address and had put a bounty on his head. So, to be safe, he needed to leave immediately. Extracting the soul purification land, Sanctuary would require over 13 years of lifespan, far beyond his current means. He understood that he had to find a temporary base first. With his decision made, he used the Hand of Greed to collect all his equipment. He jumped out of the window without hesitation, despite the fact that he lived in a high-rise building. The place where Dongfang and his family were having lunch was only about 15 minutes from his current location, and with his speed, it wouldn't take more than 10 minutes to get there. He ran like a bullet train, moving so fast that no one noticed him zipping by. At the restaurant, the Dongfang family was enjoying their meal while discussing their strategy for the game. At the head of the table was the family patriarch, Dongfang's grandfather, Shan. Shan explained that with the current situation, in-game skills and lifespan could now affect the real world. For their family, this was an opportunity to strengthen themselves from the very beginning. Everyone praised Shan, and even his grandfather said he was pleased with his progress. The family had purchased a large amount of tradable lifespan and had used it to buy equipment and skill books. The plan was to get the core members to level 10 as quickly as possible and secure their advantage once they did. They would expand their influence in both the game and the real world. With growth on both fronts, their family could rise to power and maintain control for thousands of years. However, Xian didn't share his grandfather's enthusiasm. Deep down, he wanted the old man to die so he could take his place as the head of the family. In his heart, he planned that once he caught Shadow, he would force him to reveal his secrets and extend his own lifespan. With that power, Shan wanted to become number one, and when the time was right, he would kill everyone in his family to clear the way for himself. His grandfather then asked about the progress with Shadow. Xian replied that there was no need to worry because they had found a reliable woman who would trick Shadow into revealing his identity, and they would hear from her soon. What he didn't know was that this very woman had already betrayed him, revealing Shadow's identity, and the assassin was already on his way to kill them all. Meanwhile, just as expected, Shadow stood outside the restaurant. He could hear voices from inside, but he had already eliminated all the guards outside, leaving no one alive. He hadn't anticipated that some of the family members were still armed, and he knew that Stealth and Dark Shield couldn't completely avoid all attacks since he hadn't brought much defensive gear into the real world. He understood that if he was shot in the head or heart, he would die instantly. For this reason, he sent his devout follower in first. He ordered it to kill everyone inside and leave no survivors. The zombie entered, and with its sharp claws and blue flames, the massacre began. Screams filled the room as the Dongfang family grabbed their guns and fired, but the bullets had no effect on the silver-tier boss. It incinerated them with blue flames and tore them to pieces. Even the family's grandfather was not spared. The old man tried to flee, hoping that if he escaped and logged back into the game, he would be safe, but it was too late. Shadow was already waiting for him. Before the old man could make another move, Shadow beheaded him with a single slash. Then, he used the blooming curse to drain his lifespan. In an instant, Shadow absorbed 27,000 days of tradable lifespan and 482 years of non-tradable lifespan. With this added power, turns out it was another good day for Shadow. The Cursed Flower even brought an additional benefit. Not only did it wipe away the bodies and bloodstains, but it also absorbed every drop of lifespan from those who were killed. With this, Shadow's non-tradable lifespan reached nearly 23,027 years. He knew that later when he reached the violent zone, he wouldn't feel as much pressure. Shortly after, he heard people screaming and calling the police. That became his cue to leave. When the police squad arrived and opened the restaurant door, they couldn't find a single body. They only reported hearing gunshots, but there were no people and not a single drop of blood inside. Everyone had just vanished. Shadow left the restaurant and considered his next target, the Keen Corporation headquarters. It had moved to North America before the game appeared, but the corporation's chairman's daughter, Kian Thi, was still stuck here. He decided he had to eliminate her before she left the country. The distance from Jinghai City to Modu City was nearly 300 kilometers. Walking would take 2 or 3 hours, time he couldn't afford to waste. So, he needed to find a way to get there using the game. With that in mind, he logged back in. Once in the game, Shadow thought about taking down a few silver and gold tier bosses in the ruins to kill some time. Just then, Captain Anne sent him a message. She explained that Xiao He had discovered the entrance to a temple, but a gold tier wraith was guarding it, and they hadn't been able to defeat it. On their way back to the beginner town, they took a detour to avoid the weaker monsters, and partway through, they realized someone was missing. After searching for a while, they found the person had fallen into a pit as it was a special tomb. The party chat channel was disabled. They followed the pit down and found a level 12 gold tier boss that was chasing and slashing wildly. Luckily, they were all fast runners and managed to escape. Anne then asked if he wanted the coordinates. Shadow was amazed at Xiao Hei's luck, since she had just stumbled upon a special tomb while taking a stroll. He asked for the coordinates, and Anne gently reminded him to sell the loot to them later. Shadow noted that she was indeed a sharp businesswoman. Upon arriving, he saw a well that served as the entrance and jumped down. The system immediately informed him that long-range communication was blocked. After moving a short distance, he encountered a gold-tier wraith, standing before him with a giant sword. In his past life, he had never encountered this boss. Judging by its appearance, he could tell it was a physical attacker with high power and long range. It now made perfect sense why Anne and the others had fled in panic. Shadow dodged its attacks, knowing that a single hit could kill him. He counterattacked with Eviscerate, Instant Shadow Slash, and Throat Slit, instantly killing the boss. Its defense was very high, and his Instant Shadow Slash only dealt 80% of its normal damage. As he turned to leave, one of the monster's limbs suddenly fell near him. That was not a good sign, as the monster exploded into a bomb, unleashing a cursed explosion, and his carelessness nearly cost him his life. Luckily, Shadow Body activated. Otherwise, he would have been dead. In his past life, there was a time they defeated a boss they had never seen before. A party member eagerly ran to pick up the loot and died instantly from a cursed explosion. Sometimes entire teams were wiped out by such bosses. He never imagined that even a gold-tier boss in a tomb would self-destruct. Shadow then used his greedy hand and received a Black Knight's Scimitar, a platinum-tier item, along with 110 days of tradable lifespan. This was a good haul. The Black Knight's Scimitars, Platinum skill allowed him to coat a bladed weapon with shadow power, striking all enemies within a 5-meter radius with shadow elemental damage, and adding 500 points of shadow elemental damage. He evolved it to the epic level to see the result. After evolution, the radius increased from 5 to 12 meters, and the bonus damage rose from 500 to 1,300 points. Since it was an area of effect skill, the bonus damage wasn't very high. Its total damage per use was still lower than Instant Shadow Slash, but for clearing mobs, it was a golden skill. Instant Shadow Slash only had a 5-meter range and was a linear skill that attacked in a straight line. On the other hand, the Black Knight's Scimitar could wipe out monsters surrounding him. He also got the Platinum-level Armor of Resentment and gained over 30 base attack power. The Resentment effect wasn't very useful, but the armor's base defense, resistance, and block stats were very high. It was strong enough to replace the level 5 gold-tier Hellfire Demon leather armor he was wearing. The other loot added up to over 20 items, and selling them would net him more than 10,000 days of lifespan. Now that he could enter the tomb, he hoped to find even better gear, and as an added bonus, he was looking forward to getting a great mount. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu and her friend, Ya, were constantly getting killed by low-level monsters, and with them, the one carrying the dead weight was Wei, who couldn't believe he was stuck with someone as incompetent as Xiao Yu. He grabbed her and threatened, saying she was all body and no brains, and that every time they died, it was her fault. He now only had 2 years of lifespan left, and he warned her to never see him at school again, or he would kill her. He threw her aside and logged out, leaving Xiao Yu seething with anger. Ya then suggested they could go live with her parents in their town. There was a social support group there that helped the elderly and people like them who couldn't play the game. However, Xiao Yu, as always, couldn't think rationally or make a sound decision. She was still burning with rage from the insult and told Ya to go by herself. She woke up still angry and immediately grabbed her phone, texting all her male fans to ask if they would help her. One by one, they all turned her down, calling her stupid and foolish because they knew she just wanted to leech off them. Having exhausted all her options, she started crying, believing no one was a more pitiful victim than her. Then she remembered her brother, who had never turned his back on her. She believed he surely had a way to fix things, so she decided to go find him. She looked pitiful and sad, but in her mind, she was only thinking about how to squeeze out a few tears, say a few soft words, and apologize. She went to find him, but no one answered. She kept knocking again and again until she barged into the room, only to find everything gone. His phone number was also invalid, and just like everyone else in her life, her brother had cut ties with her too. Meanwhile, deep within the Tomb of Resentment, Shadow had reached the end of the path after killing all the monsters. He revived his cultists once more, and together, they fought through nearly 200 more monsters along with a few bronze and silver tier bosses. Thanks to that, Shadow was now close to reaching level 12. All that remained was the coffin in front of him. Opening it would release the tomb's final boss, and he hoped it would be a platinum tier 1. He revived his cultist and ordered it to open the coffin. Just as he predicted, the boss instantly destroyed the zombie, but this boss had no clear physical form. It was a gold-tier boss called the Fatal Miasma, a creature made entirely of mist, immune to all physical attacks. Shadow recalled from his past life that when this boss was unleashed, it spread all the way to the nearest base. Players who didn't understand the danger suffered heavy losses, and anyone possessed by the mist faced certain death, unless they were exorcised or had a class with special immunity. Its true form was hidden within the poisonous mist, but Shadow didn't panic. He attacked with his Black Knight's Scimitar, and instantly defeated the Fatal Miasma. Even though it was only a gold-tier boss, its power clearly surpassed the platinum level. However, the loot it dropped was only gold-tier. Shadow felt a bit disappointed for not getting platinum gear, but then he noticed something unusual. Among the dropped items was a rare item, a mount summoning bell, finally. He realized he had obtained his first mount. Little Black once again proved to be Shadow's walking good luck charm, as the mount summoning bell allowed him to summon a Ghost Knight wolf at level 11. The wolf could fight alongside him and also serve as a mount, known to be one of the fastest mounts in the early game. It gained experience just like its master to level up. It had the Divine Sprint skill, which increased its movement speed by 245%, and Nightwalker, which provided permanent level 1 invisibility at night. This effect would be lost upon attacking, and Triple Strike, which attacked a target 3 times with bonus damage. It also had Howl of the Wolf, which boosted its attack, physical defense, and elemental resistance by 35%. This made it both a mount and a combat pet, a huge win for Shadow. He rode his new wolf through the city, having planned to reach level 15 and save enough lifespan to bring the mount out on his next logout. For now, he planned to go to Demon City and eliminate Qian Shishi to prevent future trouble. He arrived at the Jinghai Arena, a massive complex with 2 basement floors, a maze-like structure, and countless monsters, making it the perfect place to level up quickly. Monster Knights were guarding the palace, but Shadow suddenly swooped down from above and wiped them out with his instant Shadow Slash. The next day, as the captain and her team were fighting monsters, Mu Naliang, the son of the Jinghai city chief, arrived to cheer her on and praise her skills. In his heart, he was obsessed with the Hidden Dragon swordsman class and impressed by her power. He drooled over her until she started praising Shadow, and then his tone changed. He said Shadow was nothing more than a sneaky assassin who relied on hiding to chip away at boss's health, claiming there was nothing heroic about him at all. In his mind, Anne was lucky to have caught his eye, because with his family's status, she could live a life of power and luxury, and wasn't the type to be swayed by flattery and immediately insulted him. Unable to take it, he flew into another rage, accusing Shadow of being morally corrupt and bloodthirsty. He said that in real life, Shadow was surely a criminal on the run, and suggested setting a trap to expose his identity. In his view, only by forcing Shadow to work for the authorities could people feel safe. Otherwise, he argued that incidents like the death of the singer Song Fei would continue to happen and everyone would live in fear. Anne and Meng looked at each other and burst out laughing, mocking him for being an idiot. His attempt completely backfired, leaving him red-faced and stomping his feet like a child. While everyone ignored him, Meng turned serious and told her that he might sound a bit paranoid, but he was worried. He mentioned the case at the Jianggang restaurant, where the Dongfang family had vanished during a gathering, and wondered if the authorities knew Shadow was responsible and if they were covering it up. They still didn't understand Shadow's personality, and Meng wondered if, in real life, he was a mass murderer, and replied that the case was being taken very seriously and that many people suspected Shadow's involvement, but there was no evidence linking him to it. She added that even if it were true, she would continue to cooperate with him. If her superiors refused to clean up his messes, she would do it herself. Meng couldn't understand why she was so loyal to Shadow, but the truth was she simply wanted to be close to him. Suddenly, Yi, another member, shouted that they had found a gladiator-style arena in the next area. All the monsters inside were already dead, and the ground was littered with corpses. No one knew what team could have been strong enough to wipe them all out. At the palace, the team was stunned by the amount of loot scattered before them, and they quickly deduced this was Shadow's doing. They hoped that if they were lucky, they might run into him. Mu Naliang once again flew into a rage, saying that Shadow wasn't the only one with that kind of power. According to him, if he had an invisibility skill, he could do the same thing, as long as he was willing to put in the time, which he claimed he didn't have. Meanwhile, Anne had messaged her crush to ask if he had any spare equipment and skill books to sell to them. Just then, Shadow arrived on his deadly mount and knocked Mu Naliang aside. Everyone, including Anne, stared in awe at the mount. Shadow explained that he had found it at the coordinates they provided and gave a special thanks to his little black, calling it his good luck charm. He then offered to sell in everything on the ground for the usual price. Without hesitation, Anne paid him, saying he always gave them a fair deal. Mu Naliang was furious at being publicly humiliated and swore revenge on Shadow, though he knew he would have to bide his time. Shadow had now reached level 13, and after clearing the Colosseum ruins, he received a gold-tier silent invisibility skill book. This skill allowed him to stay invisible indefinitely as long as he didn't attack or move. If he attacked, he would deal an extra 300 damage, breaking the stealth. Not only did this skill enhance his invisibility, but it also created a terrifying effect in real life. Combining with the invincibility frames upon logging into the game, he could completely vanish from reality. With this advancement, the skill immediately evolved to the epic tier. He still had enough evolution points and used them to further enhance his other skills. He upgraded Poison Fang to the epic tier and Grace of Unsealing to the mythic tier. He also received the Liar's Necklace, a platinum tier assassin accessory. When he looked at his overall equipment and skills, he realized his invisibility had now reached level 4, a stage that no one could counter. He equipped Shadow's Veil, a gold-tier assassin item, and his evasion rate increased to 83%. While moving through the city on his mount, he suddenly encountered a giant metal boss. It was the Steel Maiden. This boss was on a completely different level, and in his previous life, only the most reckless players dared to provoke it. It had once appeared in the Jinghai ruins, where over 1,000 players joined the raid and the death count had exceeded 4,000. It was not just a boss, but also the guardian of the Holy Synod Cathedral, the second largest holy site in the Jinghai ruins. Shadow had originally planned to deal with Shishi before targeting this boss, but since the maiden had appeared now, he decided to take it down right away. As he got closer, he saw people trying to fight it, despite the fact that they were just dying one by one. That's when he spotted a familiar face. It was Chen Wuming. Chen Wuming was a hidden class Templar Knight and an old rival who had fought Shadow for 9 years in his previous life, without a clear winner. In reality, Wuming was a cunning and deceitful person, always using dirty tricks and running away whenever he was about to lose. In Shadow's past life, the Steel Maiden had been defeated by Chen Wuming's guild, the Templar Knights. Players used to say the West belonged to the Blade God, while the East belonged to the Holy Temple King. with each guild ruling its own area in the ruins. Wu Ming had forced all his new recruits to sign contracts that were no different from slave contracts. He gave them safety but demanded 50% of their lifespan in return. Most of his members were slave laborers, serving only the guild's elite warriors. It was a cruel scheme that had worked for years. This time, Shadow believed Wu Ming wouldn't be able to escape. Shadow leaped into the middle of the battle with his Black Knight's scimitar. He wiped out everyone around him with a single blow. Wu Ming couldn't believe his eyes and tried to reason, arguing that if it was really Shadow, there was no bad blood between them. So why was Shadow killing his men? Shadow didn't answer. He used instant Shadow Slash and finished off Wu Ming on the spot. Then, he cast the Curse of the Cursed Flower and completely absorbed their lifespans. When those players revived, they realized their life force was still being drained by Shadow. The only way to recover their lost lifespan was to log out and then log back in. Among the victims of Shadow's attack was Xiao Yu, who was horrified to realize her life force was now nearly depleted. Shadow also realized he had killed his own sister and absorbed her lifespan. But in his mind, she deserved it and was just suffering the consequences of her own actions. Just then, the Steel Maiden attacked him. Shadow immediately used Illusory Ghost Shadow to dodge the blow. Initially, the boss's opening phase didn't seem too difficult. When the Saintess realized her prey had escaped, it swung its giant axes in a wide circle but to no avail, as Shadow was already back in the air. Using Wind Release Grace, he unleashed a chain of attacks and followed up with the Cutthroat skill, launching a devastating attack that stunned the Saintess. But the real nightmare was just beginning. The reason it became a Guardian was due to its terrifying second phase. Once its HP dropped to half, the demonic seal within it would awaken, and from then on, it would reflect all damage received back to the attacker. Additionally, there were rumors that its demonic stomach concealed a portal leading to an unknown place. Although in his past life, no one had ever confirmed if that rumor was true or false. Meanwhile, a group of warriors stood on a rooftop, observing the battle and commenting on the shadows on the wall that had once pushed the guys straight to death's door. They debated whether it was really a shadow or not, but came to no conclusion. Everyone knew only one person was strong enough to fight, a Titangent-level boss, and even Shadow realized that they were watching him, but he chose to ignore them. The Saintess had a weakness in her second phase. When it attacked, its damage reflection ability would temporarily disappear, meaning an attack at that moment wouldn't be reflected. But Shadow knew his combos, like Instant Shadow Slash, Cutthroat Blade, and Venom Dagger, all dealt damage over time. If he used them, the reflected damage would still kill him instantly with his current stats. And as Shadow considered using those players as part of his strategy, their captain arrived. And they explained to the guy that the boss only had a few skills, all of which they had already memorized. They also mentioned that the boss had entered a new phase and that Shadow had been soloing it at first, but he had now vanished. Captain Safety asked Xiao Yu to activate Crimson Eye to find him. Even with level 3 stealth detection, she couldn't find Shadow and assumed he had left. Believing the arena was clear, Captain Safety charged into battle. He instructed his teammates to keep an eye out for Shadow and to report immediately if he returned. His team was worried about the risk, but they also had great faith in their captain, recalling his record as one of the top players back in the starting town. As a former world-class Souls-like game streamer, he tanked a series of attacks without a scratch. His reflexes were still sharp, and now he was applying those skills to deal with the boss. His team cheered as he unleashed a powerful charge, splitting into 3 afterimages. Striking the Saintess with perfect precision, the boss's HP dropped to 1/3 before anyone even realized it. His team was filled with pride, while the captain himself was visibly arrogant. But he didn't anticipate the worst kind of counter, as a platinum boss would reflect every single attack. The damage bounced back to him, and he died instantly, leaving his team in shock. They couldn't understand what had happened. From a distance, Shadow watched it all unfold. He noticed that while Captain Safety was attacking relentlessly, the boss had used a flurry of skills, and in that time, he had significantly reduced its HP. The warrior's damage output was impressive, but he had killed himself with the reflect effect, a truly tragic end. This moment created the perfect opportunity for Shadow as the Saintess turned her back to retreat toward the church, to recover and heal. Shadow realized that if he let her get back, all his efforts would be for nothing. He knew he had to face her head-on and end the fight once and for all. Captain Safety's team realized Shadow had been there the whole time, and that their captain was just showing off. Shadow activated his Darklight Shield with its 10 layers. Each layer blocked a single hit. As the boss attacked, he added his 7-layer Energy Shield, and after the blow, his Darklight Shield was down to 7 layers. Without it, he would have been dead. The Saintess charged again, and this time, all of his shields were incinerated by a blast of fire breath. If he had been even half a second slower, he wouldn't have survived. It charged one more time, and Shadow decided he could only rely on Darklight Shields and Dark Instant Shadow Strike. The pace was slow, but safe, and as he fought cautiously, the crowd couldn't believe someone could actually pull this off. After a long and brutal exchange of blows, Shadow delivered the final blow, defeating the Titangent grade Steel Saintess. He received 48,000 experience points, 120 evolution points, and the key to the church sanctuary. Using Hand of Greed, he collected the items, including the Gift of Black Flame, a set of bone-piercing leather armor with defense far surpassing other sets. The armor applies stacks of Black Flame to enemies on attack, or when attacked, reducing defense and elemental resistance by 7% per stack, up to a maximum of 5 stacks. And its passive effect reduces those stats even further. It surpassed even the gear dropped by the Purge boss. He also received Killer's Instinct and the Eye of Emberland, which allowed him to see the outlines of stealth enemies. Finding it useful, he upgraded it to Legendary grade, then used his remaining 97 points to upgrade Shadow, Stealth to Legendary grade. Captain Ann rushed over and asked what he planned to sell. Acting like a hound, she spent 45,000 days of lifespan to buy it all. Shadow then told her he had something else to sell and asked if they knew about strongholds. Ann explained that strongholds were used to store supplies and could activate defensive barriers to fend off invasions. Shadow said he knew of a small-scale stronghold that dropped from a gold-grade boss. Ann confirmed this but noted that no strongholds had been found in their city, though in Demon City, the authorities had taken over a medium-sized one. That's how people knew about them. Shadow replied that if she understood their value, then she should realize the importance of the church sanctuary stronghold key he had just obtained. Ann and Meng were shocked, but Shadow explained that the larger the stronghold, the stronger its defense systems and the more robust its infrastructure. An 800-room stronghold would provide every member of the Yangi authorities with their own room. She asked for the price, but Shadow told her to discuss it with the authorities and then make an offer. In his head, he knew that, in his past life, this stronghold was worth 2,000 years of lifespan, and if he could pull off this deal, he would have enough lifespan to bring all his gear, skills, and levels to the real world. Anne agreed to report this to the authorities, but also told him there was something he should know. There was news from Moonshadow Town that 7 gold-grade bosses had gathered. Many players had been killed. The authorities were offering a reward of 10 years of lifespan to anyone who could assist them. Shadow replied that if it was just 7 gold bosses, the authorities would handle them sooner or later, so there must be more to the story. Anne admitted that was true. They had managed to take one down, but it could resurrect. All 7 bosses suddenly had their stats skyrocket, and their entire team was wiped out instantly. Shadow thought about it and realized they might be puppets created by the cursed stone tablet from the Golden Stale. If it was really the tablet from the Golden Stale, this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. He asked for the coordinates and rushed there. As Shadow was riding his mount, he saw a group of girls bullying Xiao Yu. They were beating her up, cursing that she had joined the guild just to seduce the guild master, giving her no chance to defend herself. He thought that ever since joining the Night Palace, she had been caught up in petty squabbles, the kind of power struggles he'd seen too much of in his past life. Back then, he'd always protected his sister out of love for her. But this time, he decided to let Xiao Yu fight her own battles as he was leaving the continent. Beneath the giant statue in the center of the ruins, he found a secret chamber that could teleport players back to the starting town. Most people didn't know about this, and the teleportation was very expensive. The first trip cost 500 days of lifespan, the second was 1,000, and the third was 2,000, with the price doubling each time. That was because the starting town was gradually evolving into a higher level, more dangerous area, where weak monsters became bosses and hidden treasures emerged. Right in front of him was one such treasure, the ancient god's stele, an item he had to get his hands on. The bosses had appeared in Moonshadow Town, a place that only appeared late game, and he had never been able to reach it in his past life. Here, the young help the elderly hunt mobs, and in return, the elders give them a few years of their lifespan. He noticed an old woman who refused to share, so he killed her on the spot, then told the authorities to come and collect the items. He remembered that the Mengsha River Guild was based in this town. From its earliest days, the guild had been involved in charitable activities, helping the elderly enter the godforsaken continent for free until they received official recognition and government support. Now, it was the largest association in the north and the kind of organization this world needed. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu's friend, Yan Yan, was fighting monsters with her family. Through effort and determination, they defeated the creatures and returned to town together. Her mother asked about Xiao Yu joining the Night Palace and said that the guild was charging very high taxes. Yan Yan felt sad because she had invited Xiao Yu to join her charity guild, but Xiao Yu had refused. Now, with the guild's help, Xiao Yu had reached level 10. Her father suggested that the guild was just using her as a tool, while her mother added that the 3-year contract was nothing short of a slave contract, and the only way to gain dignity was to become strong on your own, step by step. Yan Yan was still upset at the thought that Xiao Yu had surpassed her, when suddenly an arrow killed her father instantly. A group of thugs appeared to steal their lifespan. Ignoring her warning that they would become wanted criminals, Yan Yan stood her ground, ready to fight. But before they could lay a hand on her and her mother, the entire group of thugs was wiped out in an instant. The leader's head fell to the ground as Shadow had arrived, and the bullies returned to town safely. Angry and confused as to why they had died so easily, they waited outside, planning their revenge on the girl and her mother. But as they charged forward, a curse suddenly froze their bodies in place. A group of people stepped out and read their wanted poster, declaring that the three of them had murdered and robbed their peers everywhere and had now finally been caught. These people were official bounty hunters, who had stepped in to claim the fugitives all at once. Shadow used a cursed flower to drain the bully's lifespan, and Yan Yan felt incredibly grateful, knowing that without him, both she and her mother would have died. However, Shadow saw that his sister's friend was nothing like her. Yan Yan was kind, gentle, and good-natured. Without a word, he disappeared, leaving the mother and daughter stunned that the world's #1 player could act with such quiet kindness. When Shadow arrived at the coordinates, he noticed the authorities were already waiting, but he slipped past them using stealth and moved by undetected. The officials talked amongst themselves, wondering if he was too scared to show up, but he ignored them and focused on the ancient god's stone tablet. He knew the tablet granted both positive and negative effects to equipment, and sometimes those effects could even change a class. He recalled a rumor that the world's 7th-ranked player once used 7 stone tablets in a single battle to summon the shadow of an ancient god and kill a legendary boss. The bosses created by the tablets were known for their unusual mechanics, such as disappearing with such high stealth that players would die from moving too fast or endlessly reviving because the true summoner was hiding elsewhere. Once killed, these bosses would always revive and return in a berserk state. Shadow arrived where 7 bosses were gathered, circled up as if in a meeting, and he decided to see what would happen if they were all killed at once. He equipped the believer's pendant and summoned a devout believer, which was instantly destroyed. All 7 monsters were level 10 with stats nearly double that of a typical gold-tier boss. But there was no reflect damage. Shadow drew his Night Chakram and used Throat Slit to kill them, though he was disappointed when no items dropped. Suddenly, the 7 merged into one giant boss covered in glowing symbols written in the script of the ancient gods. Shadow rearranged and translated the characters into the name Utos, the Calamity God. Realizing he had to attack the body parts in the order of the characters, his past efforts in studying the script were now proving useful. Once he attacked each part, the boss was pulled into another dimension, where giant stone tablets rose up, each marked with characters matching the previous monsters. Shadow understood that he had to kill each one near the stone block with its symbol, and he knew this was the final phase. The authorities continued to wait and discuss, convinced that Shadow was still nearby, and that the boss had gone berserk. When they finally checked, they discovered the boss had vanished, leaving only a giant crack in the ground. This could only mean that Shadow had been there. They wondered if an earthquake had killed the boss. No one could say for sure at the time. Captain Ann sent a message telling them they could leave, as Shadow had already taken care of the boss. The men were stunned. They couldn't believe they hadn't noticed Shadow pass by or that an all-out battle had taken place so close to them, without anyone realizing. Meanwhile, Shadow looked at his loot and felt satisfied. Reaching level 14 proved the battle was worth it. The 7 bosses, combined with the greedy hand, gave him 294 evolution points, but the most important reward was the ancient god's stone tablet. He knew how it worked and that the authorities wouldn't figure it out for at least another month. By then, their losses would be set in stone. The tablet was called the Cursed Stale of the Calamity God, and contained the cursed power of Utos. Its ability allowed him to attach a curse to any piece of equipment, granting a random beneficial effect and a random detrimental effect based on his class and the item's properties. Shadow attached the curse to his Blackfire-piercing leather armor, increasing the maximum stacks of Blackfire to 15 layers and pushing a boss's defense and elemental resistance into the negatives. As expected of an ancient god's tablet, the beneficial effect far outweighed the detrimental one, and the armor became incredibly powerful. He then used 210 evolution points to evolve Instant Shadow Slash to its legendary form. This exceeded his expectations. Each successful slash now generated a shield equal to his maximum health, stacking up to 9 times for 60 seconds. If all 9 slashes hit, his effective health would increase tenfold, raising his margin for error far beyond the norm. At his current pace, he knew he would soon reach level 15 and then head to Demon City. When Shadow returned to the abandoned continent, he saw Xiao Yu still being beaten by the same old bullies. They beat her until they were exhausted and finally stopped instead of finishing her off. They spat on her swollen and bruised body before leaving, believing this would be enough to teach her a lesson. However, Xiao Yu remained unchanged. Nothing got through to her. She convinced herself that everything was her brother's fault and recalled how she didn't want to abandon him at first. She thought that he should have known she was just a little girl who always said the opposite of what she really felt. The good thing was she had signed a contract with the Night Temple. With this contract, she wouldn't have to worry about survival for the next 3 years, even if it meant handing over half of her lifespan. She believed she still had plenty left and would become much stronger than the women who had bullied her. Xiao Yu convinced herself that once she had power, everyone who had looked down on her would have to die, including her brother. She then tried to use her skull skill to heal herself, but she failed once again, proving herself useless. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Demon City, Qian Shishi was hiding with her two foreign gigolos in the shadows of the ruined buildings. She watched a group of adventurers struggle against a single boss. Shishi thought the people of this city were weak, needing 18 warriors for one boss, and in her eyes, that made them pathetic. She had no respect for her countrymen and saw them only as useless trash. They waited until the last moment, when the boss was nearly defeated and only one final blow remained. Just then, Shishi and her group rushed out from the rubble and stole the kill right in front of everyone. Taking spoils and victories without shame, their group became notorious, and people whispered about the mysterious woman and her foreign companions who specialized in snatching others' rewards. Hai considered herself the perfect woman, while men were nothing more than pigs deserving of death. Her foreign companion unleashed a lightning strike, wiping out a portion of the group, and she followed up with her own power, taking down the rest without hesitation. She believed these people could never compare to her, not with the connections she had, and the confidence she held. In her mind, she compared it to a corporate bank where only the clever survive and the weak are devoured, though their true identities had yet to be exposed. Hai decided staying in Daxia was too risky. To be safe, they needed to leave soon and head to North America. She had a plan there to establish a new guild dedicated to hunting the so-called pigs of Daxia. She even had the name in mind, Alice. With that thought, Chen Hai dramatically threw herself to the ground and announced to her cronies that it was time to log out and party, treating the bloodshed as nothing more than a game. After Shadow was done, Captain Anne messaged him that the negotiations for the sanctuary had been settled with her superiors, and the price was set at 1,500 years of lifespan. Shadow thought that price was too low, so she countered with a price of 2,000. He accepted, realizing she had been trying to squeeze him from the start, and found her to be quite cunning. When he arrived at the meeting place, he noticed Anne was fully armed. She apologized for her appearance, explaining that since she was carrying so much lifespan, her superiors didn't feel it was safe for her to make the delivery, unprotected. Shadow thought they clearly didn't understand his power, as these bodyguards were just a few skills away from permanent death. The deal was made, and after receiving the key, Shadow left. The others all wondered what kind of sanctuary could be so expensive. This timing was incredibly beneficial for Shadow, because the transaction took place just as he was preparing to go to Demon City. He used all his lifespan to extract the level 15 mythic skill, Soul Liberation, the legendary skill, Assassin's Instinct, the Black Knight's Ring Blade, the epic skill, Silent Theft, the epic skill, Invisibility, the epic skill, Darkest Hour, and even his mount, all were transferred to the real world. Thus, except for his equipment, all his skills and levels were now fully synchronized. His power in the real world was nearly equivalent to his power in the game. Shortly after, a notification from the game warned that his health and hunger had reached 90%, so he had to log out to deal with it. But when he woke up, he found himself in a cage with two thugs standing guard, who demanded his lifespan, warning that he would end up like the others in the hotel if he refused. Shadow didn't even blink. With the Black Knight's Ring Blade, he killed them both and used a few more skills. He walked out of the building as if he had just stepped on a pair of ants. The more power he used in reality, the more energy his body demanded, and at this point, regular food was no longer enough. He knew that once he dealt with Thithi and her Alice Guild, his next goal had to be obtaining the Book of God-Given Talents. That mission would be anything but simple, because Thithi was extremely cunning and much harder to track down than Song Fei. However, since she had put a bounty on his head, he could use that very thing as bait to lure her out. Even after eating a whole case of noodles, he still felt hungry, so he planned to get more food on the way to Demon City. Meanwhile, in the city, Thithi was enjoying her time with her foreign gigolos until she received a message from Shadow. He told her that he had killed Jian Feng and would meet her in person in the real-world Demon City to hand over the head and collect the rest of the payment. Thithi, as expected, remained wary, believing that meeting in real life was too dangerous. She asked him to just send a picture. The man replied that Shadow didn't use a phone for fear of being tracked by the authorities. This made Thithi think that if Shadow was so cautious, he must be an enemy of the authorities. That meant he was one of the outcasts, which made her find him even more interesting. She then sent in-game coordinates, saying she wanted to meet him there. She explained that she would stage a scene to test him and see which side he was really on. Shadow logged into the game, knowing this was surely another one of her tricks. He was curious to see what she had planned in the ruins of Demon City. Shadow watched from a rooftop as Chen Thithi confronted the authorities. She was negotiating with them, while they demanded her immediate surrender or they would face the use of force. Thithi mocked them, calling them weak pigs, and to distract them, she began to strip in front of everyone. As soon as she did, The authorities' men turned away in embarrassment, unable to look directly at her. But Shadow suddenly realized something that made him pause. Their leader was Chu Haonan, known by the codename Skywalker. He was a notorious traitor who had secretly leaked information to the Alice Guild and, in the past, was only exposed and killed in the 7th year, after the game began. Shadow immediately realized that he and Thi had staged this entire scene together, and the sole purpose was to test his allegiance. If Shadow helped Thi, it would mean going against the authorities, but if he helped the authorities, Thi would probably never agree to meet him in real life. Either way, it was a choice between two paths, and he knew he had to decide immediately. Following his own plan, Shadow unleashed the Black Knight's ring blade and slaughtered the authorities' men in cold blood. When the battle was over, he calmly walked over and introduced himself to Thi like a boss. Thi couldn't help but think that Shadow was incredibly charming, although his only drawback was that he was from Daxia, something that shouldn't have been the case. Her gigolo greeted Shadow, but Shadow killed him instantly. Taking it as an insult, Thi explained that he was just greeting him, and Shadow replied that it was to avoid unnecessary misunderstandings, so from now on they should only speak their native language here. He then asked to start the transaction but told her to put her clothes back on first. Thi asked where Jian Feng's head was, and Shadow said he had it, but couldn't bring it into the game. If she wanted, he could show it to her in real life. She said that having seen his power, she knew he wasn't lying, and she completed the transaction. But to show it meant nothing to him, Shadow turned to leave, but she couldn't let him go. She asked if he wanted to work with her again, because she had a new assassination target, and if he was interested, he should come to her place. That night, she would do everything to satisfy him. These words had a double meaning, and Shadow understood that. Then, Thi logged out, saying she would wait for him at her home at the port. Shadow immediately recalled it might be a dock. Meanwhile, in the safe town, Skywalker revived in front of everyone. He pretended to be furious with Shadow for betraying them, but in reality, he was thrilled to have just worked with Thi. That meant he would profit from this slaughter. He continued to feign anger at another colleague, and she too believed that Shadow had become a threat to them. At the docks, Shadow arrived in a full cloak and walked out onto the deck, where Thi was waiting in a stunning red evening gown. She thought he was just as mysterious in real life, and Shadow asked who she wanted to kill. Thi ignored the question and started to flirt, saying they should enjoy the beautiful night and the wine. Shadow immediately drank the glass she gave him, and when she saw he was still conscious, she told him she had mixed something special in it. Anyone who drank it would start to obey her every command. With that, she became eager and began to kneel down to service him, until the man in the cloak burst with pleasure. But for Thi, it was not pleasant at all. She felt as if she were being burned by a blue flame, and at that moment, the real Shadow removed the protective crystal pendant from her neck. She suddenly saw Jian Feng standing before her and asked if he wasn't already dead. He replied that there was only one explanation, and that he was Shadow. She then asked who the man she had just been with really was, and it turned out she had just serviced a million-year-old zombie. Thi immediately bowed before Shadow, begging for her life and saying she would give him everything if he spared her. She offered to be his slave but still concealed her ulterior motives, and was still the same pervert as before. Shadow ended her story in an instant and received 659 years of tradable lifespan. The only regret he felt was that the foreigners who came with Thi weren't there, as he had hoped to eliminate all of them at once. Afterward, he used Thi's phone to call the authorities. Since she was a high-profile woman, a large police force quickly arrived and surrounded the yacht. Among them was another one of Thi's boy toys, who was Skywalker in the game. When they discovered Thi's body, they realized something was wrong, and Haonan was certain that Shadow was also behind her death. Skywalker then used his special technique, Dying Words of the Dead. By touching the corpse, he could reveal the killer's location for 5 minutes, and he vowed to get justice for her. He immediately sensed Shadow's presence, and everyone opened fire in unison in that direction. Skywalker was taken out quickly, and soon after, the entire police force unloaded their bullets on Shadow. The captain urged everyone not to panic, and called for Shadow to reveal himself. Shadow replied, telling them not to panic either. He explained that he had killed Skywalker, because Skywalker had been leaking information to Thi for personal gain and was a traitor. He added that the proof should be on Skywalker's phone, so they could take their time investigating. Upon checking the phone, they discovered the exchange logs, and saw that Thi was behind numerous events both in the game and in real life. They realized Shadow had been telling the truth. The battle in the game where he killed them all was just an act to gain Thi's trust, track her down in real life, and finish her off. He even called the authorities on himself and eliminated Skywalker, solving 2 major crimes in one move. The officers concluded that this man was extraordinary. One of them recalled shooting a few rounds at him earlier, fearing that he might hold a grudge. To show her gratitude, she shot herself in the leg and said the debt was paid. urging Shadow to continue cooperating with the authorities. Shadow witnessed everything, acknowledging her sacrifice. Her in-game name was Midnight Dance, and he thought it was no wonder she would become the supreme leader of the official Meidu forces in the future. Meanwhile, back in the game, Xiaoyu had joined another guild and was fighting a monster when the guild master asked her to heal him. She slipped and healed the boss instead. After being revived, she once again blamed Shadow, insisting she was the victim and that he was always hunting her. But the master she was serving slapped her and reminded her that it was the platinum-tier boss, Atlas Killer Charlotte, who had wiped them out and that she was the one who healed the boss. He said he regretted ever teaming up with her, and that if the guild master put her on his team again, he would kill himself on the spot. They realized the boss had followed them, and Xiaoyu had no chance to escape before being wiped out again. In a million-dollar mansion, a woman was furious, because the authorities had the perfect chance to kill Shadow but let him go. She called her contact in the government, demanding to know why Shadow was treated with respect when he had wiped out her entire Dongfang family, and her blood feud should have been avenged. She was part of the Dongfang family that Shadow had killed earlier, and she was determined to get revenge. While she was still talking to the man, her son, with lifeless eyes, chimed in and said he had a plan to kill Shadow. She told him he couldn't help because only adults over 18 could enter the game, and he didn't even have access. He replied that although he couldn't be there physically, he could still use his brain. Shadow loves to kill, so they would send someone to provoke him, arrange for those people to be in a fireworks factory, and set everything up beforehand. When Shadow arrived to kill them, they would blow up the factory, and the whole world would witness the death of the #1 player. His mother thought she had raised a brilliant man, but he was actually a little monster who killed for no reason. Back in the Meidu ruins, Xiaoyu and her guild members were wiped out again, and the onlookers couldn't understand how. They saw no threat and assumed it had to be Shadow. When more players were killed in another attack, all the blame fell on him, and everyone believed he was randomly killing innocent people with his high-level stealth ability. Meanwhile, Shadow was completely unaware of all this. He went to a beach he believed was safe, took out his safe house, and watched it appear in the middle of the sea. Just as he got inside, he received a message from Wang Ming saying everyone was accusing him of killing players, but Shadow knew he wasn't even online. He investigated and learned the real culprit was a platinum-tier boss named Headless Assassin Charlotte, with stealth so high that no one could see her. Wang Ming said he needed Shadow's help in the city. Captain Safety was still pissed that Shadow had stolen his spotlight. He insisted he could defeat the boss, but his teammates told him to calm down and focus on hiding. Just then, he slipped on a banana peel, and in a few seconds, his entire team was wiped out. He somehow survived and tried to roll away from Charlotte's attacks, but she eventually finished him off. At that moment, Shadow arrived, and with his stealth-breaking attack, he dealt her a fatal blow. A few minutes before Shadow arrived, everyone was blaming Xiaoyu because she had triggered the headless boss, and it had locked onto her, following her all the way to the respawn point. She cried that she didn't do it on purpose, but her incompetence had exhausted every warrior, and they were tired of getting killed because of her. The guild master appeared and told her she wasn't cut out for fighting. From now on, her job was to search for the locations of safe houses. If she found a gold-tier safe house, she would be rewarded with 3 years of lifespan, and if she found a platinum-tier one, she would get 10 years. He admitted to himself that hiring her was a mistake. To keep her alive, he decided to grant her 1 day of lifespan every day, or else she would keep dying and wasting everyone's lives. Xiaoyu still didn't get it, and the other women in her guild grew jealous, convinced she was hogging the guild master's attention. The guild master then noticed Charlotte fall, and Shadow was standing over her body. Suddenly, Xiaoyu, who was standing at a distance among the guild members, began to float in the air. No one knew what was happening, until 4 Titan bosses appeared in the sky and surrounded her. Xiaoyu believed Shadow would save her and cried out for him. With a lightning-fast slash, Shadow completely finished off the headless assassin Charlotte, but he couldn't care less about Xiaoyu's life. He just gave a weak apology before using Greedy Hand to receive 1,120 tradable days and a few skill gems. Captain Ann suddenly reappeared, asking if he had anything else to sell. Shadow was growing tired of their constant presence, but the timing was right because he knew another place with valuable loot. He agreed to take them if the price was right, but said only the men could go and that Anne should stay behind. When Anne assumed he was worried about her safety in such a dangerous place, he bonked her on the head and said that wasn't the reason. Outside the city's north gate, amidst the ruins was the Tower of the Divine Fist. After a trial, it could yield great loot, but the NPC inside hated women, and if a team had any female members, the difficulty would increase immensely. Anne stormed off in a huff, and Shadow sent a private party invite to Wang Ming and his other male members. They were nervous because this was the first time Shadow had ever partied up with anyone, and as he walked ahead, they had to run just to keep up with his incredible pace. While on the move, Shadow checked the white bone blade, an assassin's weapon. with the unique effect of doubling his movement speed for 5 seconds after dealing damage, while also increasing evasion by 30%. He also received the Shadow Blade, a platinum-grade weapon that could create a dark energy attack, dealing single-target dark elemental damage within a 20-meter radius. He immediately evolved it to the legendary grade because of its power. When he looked back, he realized his new team members were nowhere near him. They had fallen almost 2 kilometers behind. Exhausted and struggling to keep up, Shadow and his new underlings finally reached the Golden Tower. He explained that once they were inside, an NPC would appear to give them a challenge. The NPC was very cunning, and the stronger a player performed, the more expensive the items would become. For now, Shadow decided he would only use 1% of his power, while the boys had to go all out, and focus on taking down at least one gold-tier boss. When he turned around, he saw Meng and his friend already sprawled on the floor, panting from exhaustion. Even so, Meng promised that they would complete the mission at all costs. Shadow saw their determination and figured that enthusiasm was enough. He told them that once they passed the challenge, the items would be well worth it. He reminded them to always use the team chat channel, so the NPC couldn't eavesdrop. Though he didn't realize, the boys were just asking for a little more time to breathe. Inside the tower, just as Shadow had said, an NPC floated in the center with a faint blue star glowing around it. The NPC welcomed them to the Tower of Divine Authority and announced that if they could pass his trial, they would earn the right to trade with him. Meng nervously asked if they had to fight, and Shadow reassured them that all they needed to do was follow his orders when the time came. He promised the battle would be simple. The boys were still anxious, asking one question after another until their words overlapped. Shadow looked at them in disbelief, wondering how they had ever won any battles before, when they seemed so uncertain now. Meng tried to justify his nervousness by explaining that a previous accident had made him cautious. Just then, the NPC raised its hand and summoned a level 20, gold-tier obsidian skull-splitting golem. The ground shook as the massive creature appeared, and Wang Ming and his teammates stared in disbelief. The strongest enemy they had ever fought before was level 11, and now they were facing a level 20 boss. Meng gathered his courage and charged forward with a shield bash. The golem roared and struck back with crushing force. Shadow immediately intervened, shouting commands. He ordered the archer to use short-range meteor and the swordsman to execute a triple slash. The boys obeyed, and their combined attack chipped away a small fraction of the golem's health. With the boss in range, Shadow decided to engage directly. He warned the boys to stay away from the puddles of black oil leaking from the monster's body, as it could burn through armor. They narrowly dodged the attack, struggling to hold their ground. Shadow then unleashed his Shadow Blade, dealing heavy damage and cutting deep into the golem. The battle entered its next phase, as the monster grew more frantic. The boys whispered among themselves about how strong the boss was and asked how Shadow knew that the prices would increase the better a player performed. Shadow replied slyly that this game hid countless secrets within its ruins, and the real question was whether one explored deep enough to find them. The boys didn't know how to respond and fell silent, while the golem now entered its final berserk phase. It started spewing fire, and Shadow quickly warned them that the monster would rotate clockwise, and they needed to dodge immediately because of the black oil on the ground. When combined with the flames, it could incinerate them in just 3 seconds. They all fled, and Shadow gave Meng a direct order. He told him to activate his invincibility skill and block the flames with his shield. The moment the flames stopped, he had to unleash his highest damage skill, Full Power Burst, and attack the golem with all his might. Just as Shadow predicted, they defeated the level 20 skull-splitting golem. The real trick to this fight was that once its health dropped below 70%, it would automatically enter a berserk state. Shadow explained that if they dispelled the berserk state, the golem was no stronger than a silver-tier boss. The NPC descended from the sky and told them that as long as they paid a fair price with their lifespan, he would trade the divine tomes with them. Sinisterly, this NPC had 6 fingers, which one of the players pointed out, and the next moment, they were attacked by him. Normally, NPCs never attack players unless their taboo is mentioned, and this NPC's taboo was his 6 fingers. Looking at him, even Shadow couldn't defeat him. In fact, these NPCs were divine beings from another timeline who specialized in trading for players' lifespans. This wicked NPC desperately asked them to trade their lifespan for a gift. Meng's team was excited to learn that lifespan could be exchanged for survival supplies. In the real world, with these gift books, they wouldn't run out of supplies anytime soon. Shadow then acquired 9 divine tomes for Zhanghai City, in exchange for 9,000 days of lifespan. This was enough for his daily needs. Now he planned to go to the Tower of Achievement to claim divine authority and fame. He asked the NPC to take him alone to the highest difficulty challenge, but the NPC didn't think he was capable of handling even the first stage, let alone the highest difficulty. There were 5 floors, and the 5th floor was the highest, where he would have to face a gold-tier obsidian, skull-splitting golem with a 5 to 100% stat increase. The boys warned Shadow that he could die from a single mistake against such a powerful foe. However, the NPC reminded him that he would have to forfeit the dropped lifespan in case of failure. Our boy gladly accepted, and the next moment, the NPC activated the challenge for him. Now it was a boss monster with a 5 to 100% buff, but our boy wasn't fazed because in his previous life, he had faced a 2 to 1000% buff. He threw his poison dagger at the boss, activating a black flame, but the boss had 7% elemental resistance. Shadow increased his speed by 100% for 5 seconds, using the special effect of the bone blade. With the effect of this skill, he dashed towards the boss, stabbed it, and then vanished. He then used the elegant execution skill, which could slit the boss's throat, but even with this powerful attack, it wasn't enough to take down the boss, which had 64% damage resistance. Shadow noticed that without the buff from the ancient god Stel to enhance his black flame talent, he could only use instant shadow slash to deal 18,000 damage per hit. Meanwhile, the boys were astonished to see Shadow chop away half of the boss's health bar with his instant slashes. The NPC was also stunned to witness the power of a god-forsaken player from Blue Star. Shadow then made a pact, sacrificing 20% of his damage per second and used Throat Slit, further increasing the damage to the boss. With that, he finally completed the 5th floor challenge and received the fame for all 5 floors. By completing the highest difficulty challenge, he also achieved a global accomplishment as the first person to solo clear the Tower of Divine Authorities challenge. Outside, other players were stunned to see the tower-like structure and realized that Shadow had once again surpassed them all. The NPC was furious with him, calling him a cheater and regretting not charging more lifespan. In a flash of light, Shadow was teleported out of the tower. Mung and his teammates were relieved that they were unharmed, and were comforted by our boy, as the NPC couldn't harm them. He then dismissed them to get dinner, and they asked him to call them again the next time such an opportunity arose. Back in reality, he took out the 9 divine tomes. He spent 90 days of lifespan, which could be traded for 106 years of lifespan. He bought important supplies and also a robot maid, whom he ordered to clean the house. Meanwhile, in Zhanghai City, the police found the body of a mutated female. They suspect this is the same killer who murdered 2 other women, someone cunning enough to dispose of the bodies right outside the skill's effective time window. So they decided to call you in to investigate. The other officers suspect Shadow is the killer because the time of the body disposal matches his login and logout records. The superior firmly states that despite the rumors of him being the killer, this evidence is insufficient, and he suspects Xiao Ma is only targeting Shadow because he was humiliated. He supports him in solving the case to gather enough evidence, much to the other officers' annoyance. Meanwhile, at the godforsaken ruins of the demonic capital, Shadow stands before the Eerie Academy, a platinum-grade hideout with the strongest barriers in Huaxia. He has now created a guild named Shadow by spending 2.47 years of lifespan, after which he decides to take over and register this hideout under the guild's name, granting it a sanctuary in the demonic capital. With that, he can teleport from Zhanghai City to the demonic capital via his sanctuaries in each city. After entering, he still finds not a single soul, even on the 3rd basement floor. Suddenly, he hears voices and sees a gang from the Asura Hall harassing a girl, forcing her to reveal her real-life location. One of them offers a deal and return the 30 years of lifespan she stole from Madame Dongfang and let them have their fun with her, and then they'll let her go. Feigning innocence, she agrees to do so if they let her go, but the very next moment, she attacks with a poisonous dagger throw, but is overwhelmed by the goons' golden tripod smash, forcing her into submission. She then bids them farewell, as the man in front of her is torn in half by a bladed chain, and she turns towards the others who are cowering from Shadow, as our boy recognizes her potential. Standing tall after the kill, with her netherworld blade, she burns with rage, wanting revenge on Dongfang. Looking at her hidden class, netherworld blade, and her name, Ghost Shade. Shadow understands that she is an assassin, one of the top 10 assassins from his previous life, but her identity was exposed because she went against the Zhu family, leaving her with no allies. She was killed, but not before taking down thousands. Now, standing before her, he decides to help her by killing this Yu, A Dongfang, who is surely from the Dongfang family. As soon as she recognizes him, she attacks with netherworld chain, assuming he's one of her enemies. He tries to explain, but she refuses to listen. He decides to play along, disappearing and reappearing behind her, startling her. He backs off and attacks again with Shadow Dive. Her stealth ability makes her vanish from his sight. In response, he vanishes too, leaving her in shock, as she can usually detect anyone with her level 4 stealth detection. She suspects this person must be Shadow as he appears behind her. She curses that he can detect her even while she's using level 4 stealth. She then uses soul-chasing Dark Shadow against him, a skill that lets her chains track his location. She declares that he can't escape her skill while he's trying to dodge her chain. He's impressed by her technique but thinks it's not that great as he finally closes in on her. He tricks her chain into binding her and tells her to listen carefully. If he were sent to assassinate her, she would have been dead long ago. He then asks if this Yue Dongfang is from Jianhai City. She explains that she married into the Zhu family. Hearing this, he realizes that's why he didn't find Yue while wiping out the Dongfang family. She is shocked to hear this and suggests they become allies. Since he is also an enemy of her enemy, he throws her to the ground and says they can talk about being teammates later. Now he wants to know why she wants to kill Yue. She explains that Yue killed her mother in a drunk driving accident, but got away with it thanks to the Zhu family's influence. Her father had enough evidence against Yue, but they killed him too, and staged his death as a suicide. When she went to confront them herself, their goons brutally beat her. That's when she discovered the game, Divine Armament. The first thing she wanted was to kill Yue, but she realized she'd have to drain her entire lifespan to do it. Yue then hired assassins to kill her. In desperation, she begs Shadow for help, but he bluntly refuses. She asks if there's anything he wants, offering to serve him with all her might, even become his slave if that's what he desires. But he refuses, adding that she must get her own revenge. However, he will help her, and how much she achieves will depend on her own abilities. She asks how to receive his guidance, and he offers her a spot in his guild. Ghost Shade immediately joins the guild. Her next step is class advancement, but this quest she must figure out on her own, as she can only receive his help once. She successfully advances her class and finds him again, after which he leaves. Heading into the deepest area of the Eerie Academy, he decides to keep this girl by his side, as she has the potential to become stronger. There, he discovers a mutant witch Stana, a level 15, platinum-ranked monster. This monster is the guardian of the Academy. Without wasting any time, he uses Black Knight's ring blade on it. Observing his enemy in Phase 1, he immediately understands that only one of the monster's 4 heads is active, making it immune to physical attacks. This leaves him no choice but to use weak elemental magic. He then uses Shadow Blade to attack and White Bone Blade to increase his movement speed. He successfully defeats one head, which triggers the boss's Phase 2, activating all 3 remaining heads at once. It unleashes random but relentless attacks towards our main character. He dodges them all and finally lands a critical hit. Soon after, he successfully takes it down, receiving 50,000 experience points. Along with that, he obtains the key to the Eerie Academy. He also advances to the 2nd tier of his class, enhancing his stats at the same time. He gets a new skill that makes his stealth immune to attacks. The 2nd tier transition is now complete. A while ago, Ghost Shade was in the outer area of the Academy when the goons from Asura Hall return with reinforcements. They are ready to attack her, but she confronts them with Shadow Escape. However, they use a flare grenade, and the explosion throws her back. They prepare to teach her a lesson, but notice the poison in her hand that she's about to use. The leader acknowledges her cunning, realizing she plans to kill herself and then revive again. Just as they are about to touch her, a notification suddenly appears, stating that the Eerie Academy has become Shadow's sanctuary. The guild and all outsiders are about to be expelled shortly after. The purge is complete as everyone vanishes from her sight. She confusedly realizes that in just a few minutes, Shadow defeated the boss and made this place their sanctuary. After the fight, he received 2 items. One is a witch's ring that increases stats by 30%, and the other is a poison trap with level 5 stealth that poisons anyone caught in it. He also earned an evolution point, and he uses it to evolve his backstab skill to the legendary level, which significantly increases both his damage output and survivability. Shortly after, he receives a message from Xiao He, informing him of a newly discovered ruin in Jianhai City. It has carvings identical to what they found in the novice village when they conquered it. A teleportation circle appeared, but nothing happened when they touched it, as it seems to be meant for a fated one. She suspects he might be that fated one. He agrees to come and prepares to sell his equipment to her. Just as he's about to teleport, she informs him to sell the equipment to the demonic capital's authorities instead, because Zhanghai doesn't have the lifespan to trade for it. Later, in the outskirts of Zhanghai City, Xiao He is there when she's suddenly ambushed by our main character. He demands to know the ruin's location. She points to the cliff below. He asks her how she found it, and she explains that she accidentally fell off the cliff and got stuck on a tree, which is where she discovered it, then called Meng's team to explore. Stepping into the ruin, she warns him about the maze ahead and explains that she's already cleared out the monsters. He warns her to be careful with her non-tradable lifespan. She understands this strange system, explaining that there's a skill that can drain her lifespan should she deplete her non-tradable lifespan. To his surprise, she says they've found a way to replenish it. She explains that they've been trapping and killing monsters that have non-tradable lifespan, storing the dropped items to use later for replenishment. He's impressed and asks if An-U was the one who discovered this method. She confirms it, which he knew, because, in his past life, she was the one who discovered this method. They then discover some teleportation orbs, and Xiao He touches one, revealing that it won't react to anyone but a fated one. She urges him to try it, as she suspects this orb is linked to the previous village. When he touches it, he's instantly teleported to the ice-tide cave, where he can't use any long-distance communication methods. Inside, he's tasked with protecting the ice-tide crystal. He immediately uses Shadow Dive to become invisible. He recalls that the crystal releases a freezing blast whenever it takes damage. Monsters from the tunnels soon begin to pour in, trying to destroy the crystal. Any damage to the crystal will kill him, but the real problem is if it breaks, he won't respawn there and will also lose his reward. So, he sets poison traps at 3 points and uses a wizard's ring to increase his skill range by 25%. When the monsters arrive, a few of them are killed instantly by the traps. He remains in stealth, and while racking up damage points, he can easily kill the monsters with his sneak attack, but his attack is suddenly interrupted by a weapon thrown in his direction. It doesn't hit him. Looking up, he spots a zombie-like creature, surprised to find a ranged monster among them. Meanwhile, at the ruins outside Modu, the members of the Asura Hall Guild stand before their client, Dongfang Yue, who is furious with the guild master for refusing to assassinate Ghost Shade after she became a member of the Shadow Guild. When they tell her to find someone else, she threatens to kill them in real life. This gets her brutally beaten by the guild master. He punches her repeatedly, while reminding her that while Shadow might be untouchable to him, she certainly isn't. In the end, he kills her. In real life, she is absolutely furious and immediately calls her beloved husband to deal with them, also informing him that Ghost Shade is now a member of the Shadow Guild. He reassures her that he'll handle both of them, as he has already hired the Black Dragon Guild and Modu to take care of Shadow. He hangs up. She's filled with determination to destroy all of Asura Hall, as well as Shadow himself. Meanwhile, Shadow quickly kills the monster. He isn't fazed by the discovery of ranged monsters, as his Shadow Blade is enough to take them down with just one slash to their weak point. After defeating the Guardian, his quest is complete and the reward is given to him. It's an epic grade chest. Remembering that he got gentle release last time, he's even more curious to see what this latest reward holds. An NPC once again emerges from the chest. She speaks in an ancient language that our MC doesn't recognize, but thanks to his judge's eye, he can still understand her words. After rambling about him being the chosen one and promising to witness his rise from now on, she finally decides to give him his reward. It turns out to be Asahi's summoning bell, an item that allows him to summon her after completing all 3 trials. She will stay permanently in his base, providing him with a skill upgrade function. From her words, he understands that the first trial was for level 5, and this one is for level 15. He figures this windfall is all thanks to Delizzy's insane luck. Then he gets the chance to choose one of his skills to upgrade to his current level. He knows he can't directly upgrade a skill's quality, but he can force it by using infinite evolution. Still, he considers his options carefully. Initially, he planned to upgrade Shadow Dive to a mythic skill, but after some thought, he decides to max out Elegant Release, since his other skills can still be evolved later at the cost of his lifespan. The upgrade boosts Elegant Release to level 16, and just then, a portal to leave the ruins appears before him. Just as he's about to leave, he notices something else hidden inside the chest, an equivalent exchange package. This rare item allows him to exchange any skill, book, or piece of equipment for another item of the same tier. Satisfied with his loot, he can't help but silently thank Delizzy again for this incredible luck. He returns to Xiao Hei and notices something unusual. She didn't proceed to the next level, but waited for him in the farming area. Xiao Hei is happy to see him, admitting that she wanted to stay in case something attacked him. As they leave the area, he gives her a skill book he picked up as thanks. She nearly bursts with joy when she realizes it's a level 13 book, a platinum-grade magic shell, a treasure that will boost her survivability. She happily waves goodbye to him, and he logs out to eat. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Huanghai City, the Holy Domain Knights gather at their first real base. Chen Huiming proudly addresses the members. This small base means safety, a place to rest, and a foothold in the city. He points to the person who made it happen, Xiao Yu, taking her by surprise. Cheers erupt as Xiao Yu steps forward, a bit overwhelmed by the attention. She thanks her leader first, then her friends, and even those who mocked her. Believing their criticism gave her the motivation to become stronger. She mentions her deceased parents, wishing they could see her now and feel proud, tears streaming down her face. The guild leader asks how she found this place and what troubles she faced. She explains to everyone about a dream where a warrior led her here. The crowd bursts out laughing, taking it as a joke. When asked about last night's dream, she describes a massive platinum-grade base. The laughter continues. The guild leader rewards her with 1 year of tradable lifespan and urges her to keep searching. Afterwards, Xiao Yu ventures deeper into the ruins, chasing the strange pull from her dreams. 3 guild members stealthily follow her, suspecting she's looking for another base inside a ruined building. The air grows heavy. Something is wrong. A monstrous face lunges from the shadows, 2 tentacles shooting out from its mouth. Fear grips her, and she screams before passing out. The followers back away as the tentacles wrap around her and one forces its way into her mouth. Her lifespan is instantly drained. Horrified, they realize what the creature is capable of and flee. Xiao Yu wakes up just in time to see it devour the fleeing group. Panic sends her running, but her terror causes her to trip down the stairs. She lands in a heap at the bottom and freezes. Before her is an entrance identical to the one in her dream. The platinum base is real. She quickly messages her guild leader. He orders her not to move, pulls her into his party, and tracks her location. Relief washes over her until that sound returns. The monster is back, looming behind her. She trembles as she turns around, trying to muster her courage while fear makes her knees go weak. She grips her weapon tightly. She forces herself to believe she has the strength to win. The weak person she used to be is gone. As a life-sacrificing priest, a noble hidden class, her confidence ignites. She attacks, and unleashing poison vines on the creature. A thrill runs through her as the attack lands. She presses the attack, a poison mist erupting from her, a rapidly spreading cloud of toxins. She expects it to tear the monster apart, but the realization comes too late. The space is sealed off, and the poison smoke billows back, filling the room and trapping her inside. She held her breath, her lungs screaming as panic clawed at her. Desperation drove her to use Detoxify. A flash of relief turned to horror. The effect landed on the monster instead. It cleansed the monster, leaving her helpless as the poison ravaged her body. Her own skill had become her end. Later, she revived and returned, and the guild master wasted no time. He asked why she was back so soon. She explained about the ambush inside the building. His expression changed upon learning she had survived a soul-sucking head, a creature that could drain one's entire lifespan. She answered cheerfully that, faced with certain death, she had chosen to kill herself first. The guild master praised her quick thinking, calling it genius. She smiled, accepting the praise, and hurried back to join him. Along the way, her thoughts turned smug. The 3 players who followed her had paid with their lives. They deserved it. 1 week later, she led the guild master to the secret entrance of the platinum-grade base. He nodded in approval. He promised a reward once it was theirs. The order was given, and the data was spread. The team surrounded the perimeter, ready to take down anyone who dared to interfere, even members of the Shadow Alliance. The guild master signaled the attack. The members charged the entrance, but the gate didn't budge no matter how hard they pushed. They attacked continuously until the truth was revealed. The gate itself was the guardian. He swung with all his might, and damage numbers appeared on the stone slab. The guildmaster smirked and declared it would soon be theirs. Immediately, the entire force unleashed their skills. Explosions bombarded the gate. Far away, Shadow received a notification. His soul purification ground base was under attack, its durability at 99.3%. Teleportation was locked. Someone had found the entrance. At their pace, it would take a year to break through. He mounted his wolf and galloped toward the ruins. Near the perimeter, he came across another scene. 2 players were chasing a girl, their tones menacing. One cut her down while the other bound her with divine shackles. They sneered, accusing her of trespassing on night territory. The girl protested, insisting it was a lie. Shadow froze for a moment. He knew her. It was Yang Xiaoya, his kind colleague who had once brought him lunch. His gaze sharpened when he saw the guild emblem belonging to the Holy Domain Knights, the same guild that was attacking his base. The 2 players argued over who got to go first. They never got the chance to finish their argument. In that instant, Shadow's attack flashed. 2 heads fell before their bodies even hit the ground. Yang Xiaoya looked up in astonishment. Her eyes widened, filled with disbelief. Those eyes were so familiar. She knew them. They belonged to Chinfong. Shadow snapped his fingers, activating the blooming flower curse around her. She asked if he was Chinfong, but he vanished before she could finish. She wondered why his eyes looked so much like Chinfeng's, then dismissed the thought. If Shadow were Chinfong, he wouldn't have let Xiao Yu join the Holy Domain Knights as a dark slave. Outside the Soul Purification Ground base, the Guildmaster greeted Shadow with flattery. He apologized for his men robbing passers-by, calling it a crime punishable by death. He thanked Shadow for teaching them a lesson, reminding everyone that Shadow had once saved them from the headless assassin. Since then, they had followed his example, proclaiming themselves the most righteous guild in the game. Finally, he asked why Shadow had come. Shadow said he heard they were attacking a base. The Guildmaster confirmed it, then froze when Shadow bluntly declared the base was his. Panic spread as the Guildmaster insisted Shadow's base was in Magic City, but Shadow explained that players could own 1 base per city. He owned bases in both Magic City and Central Sea. The guild realized they had trespassed on his property. Xiao Yu burst into tears, unable to understand why none of her dreams had warned her. The Guildmaster quickly apologized, asking how he could fix the mistake. Shadow demanded 500 years of lifespan to repair the gate. The Guildmaster collapsed in shock. A member begged Shadow to lower the demand, but Shadow refused. He warned them to be quiet if they didn't know the real price. The guildmaster grabbed Xiao Yu. He was furious that she had dragged them into this. She admitted her fault and begged Shadow to punish her instead. Vowing to serve with her life and all future lifespan, Shadow surprised the whole guild by calling out the guildmaster by name and asked if he really thought she was worth 500 years of lifespan. The guildmaster erupted with killing intent. Punching Xiao Yu aside, he accused her of feigning sacrifice just to get on Shadow's good side. She collapsed, realizing her plan had failed again, while the guildmaster resumed his begging. Saying they couldn't provide 500 years of lifespan, Shadow lowered his demand. 100 years of lifespan, and the rest converted into the heads of butchers, 1 life per year. Killing them would remove their status. This would also benefit Shadow's guild. The guildmaster agreed and transferred 100 years of lifespan, and ordered all butchers to gather immediately. Shadow then received a system notification. Repairing the gate only cost 7 days of lifespan. He accepted, 7 days were deducted, and the base was fully restored. Shadow killed 400 butchers, his level dropping from 4 to 3. The guildmaster praised him, saying those members had broken the rules and deserved to be punished. Shadow ordered the guild to guard this base, using it as a place to discipline rule breakers. They were to guard in shifts, and the guildmaster would be held responsible for any future attacks. The guildmaster agreed, realizing Shadow intended to trap them here. Suddenly, a system notification interrupted. The Academy of Vengeful Spirits was under attack, barrier durability at 99.8%. Instant teleportation was available. Shadow accepted. He was sure everyone knew the academy was his, and, curious who would dare attack it, he vanished. Back there, the guildmaster ordered everyone back. A member protested, but he insisted they obey. He assigned Xiao Yu to guard duty, mocking her dream of being here. He warned her not to leave or her lifespan would be drained. Meanwhile, at the Academy of Vengeful Spirits in Magic City, attackers were hammering the gate, its durability down to 51.7%. 2 guild members watched, one doubting anyone would dare provoke Shadow. The other recognized them as the Black Dragon Hall, possibly foreign players, while Shadow observed from above. He was confused, as he'd never crossed paths with them. The attackers unleashed black flames and a demonic dragon break. Durability dropped to 13%. They cheered, seeing 100 years of lifespan as an easy score. Shadow concluded they were hired, and only Dongfang Yue fit the bill. The next moment, a dragon appeared behind them. It sent them all running for their lives as a meteor formed in the sky. It unleashed a massive inferno. The leader shielded himself with his hands and remained unharmed. He was surprised to take only 3,000 damage and mocked the weak power, right before an energy slash instantly took his head. Panic spread as their leader died. A girl suspected Shadow was there. Others suggested he might have permanent invisibility. Shadow appeared before the girl, recognizing her as Zhang Jingshuan. Her in-game name was Qingshan Shi Li, and she was a player with a hidden soul-type class. Soul Painter. The dragon and meteor were her creations, unlike mages. Soul Painters draw their skills. They excel in defense and team fights, but are weak alone. She spoke up, asking if Shadow was there. She wanted to enter the base to advance her class and offered to pay a fee. Shadow recalled that she and her grandfather, Old Zhang, became famous streamers after the game's descent. Old Zhang had founded the Sky Dome Guild at the Academy of Vengeful Spirits, building it into one of the top 10 guilds of Great Xia. Shadow had once admired them. The base gate opened, and Shadow ordered her inside to talk. She entered the Academy of Vengeful Spirits and found Shadow sitting on his throne. He let her speak, and she began to explain. Her Soul Painter class required rare materials for advancement, which existed here. She also recalled hearing that he had once sold a base to the Central Sea government for 2,000 years of lifespan. Since her advancement required a large quantity, she offered to buy the academy from him. Ying quickly realized how the Sky Vault Guild had amassed such a massive fortune, and Old Zhang was clearly behind it. But he refused to sell. Instead, he allowed her free access to the first floor whenever she wanted. She took it a step further, proposing to rent instead of buy 500 years of lifespan for a 3-year lease. Just getting access should have solved her needs, but she insisted on paying rent. Ying realized her real goal was to build a relationship to show her sincerity. She made another offer to help him wipe out the Black Dragon Hall Guild that had attacked his gate. Ying asked if she needed Old Zhang's approval for this action, and she replied that her grandfather always listened to her, and besides, Black Dragon Hall was just a small guild they could easily crush. Ying admired her boldness and agreed. The lease was finalized, netting him 500 years of lifespan, and he granted her full access to the first floor. He also reminded her not to worry about damaging the barrier, as the lava below would automatically repair everything. She accepted and left alone. He noticed she seemed even more lively than on her live stream. Brushing the thought aside, he moved to his warehouse. The cooldown for his equivalent exchange was over, so he activated the Vomiting Fish's ability. One item vanished and a new one appeared. The intelligence training manual disappeared. It was replaced by Red Fang, an emerald grade limit break skill for assassins. This dagger skill impressed him. Limit break skills build up over time and can instantly turn the tide of battle. Red Fang alone added 4,800 blood elemental damage. With buffs, it could exceed 100,000. He still had 5 evolution points left, so he used 500 points to evolve a mythic grade skill. The effect reduced the lifespan cost of stealth by 90%. This freed him from the pressure of using the Berserk domain. He checked his status, level 17, equipped with Sharp Will, fragile white gloves, invisibility shoes, and the wet ring. Except for the footwear, everything else was emerald grade. He admitted the low-grade gear looked ugly and switched back to his crystal cannon appearance. He prepared to move to the next base. Meanwhile, outside Magic City, a soldier led 4 sellers, fewer than expected. The other soldier complained, but he was reminded that there were fewer people trading lifespan now. As the car pulled up to the villa, the sellers stepped out. One remarked on the size of the house, clearly owned by someone wealthy. A hooded girl among them went in to inform Miss Dongfang, who appeared shortly after. She ordered the sellers to convert their lifespan into orbs and leave them on the ground. One seller protested, demanding to see the payment first. Her voice turned cold, telling them to follow orders or die. Her soldiers raised their guns. The sellers argued back that she was robbing people of her own class, and launched an attack. He activated his hidden class, Insect Master, unleashing a swarm. Each insect was capable of getting stronger with equipment. He ordered his comrades to strip her of everything. The group deployed their platinum-grade shield, the Golden Dome Barrier. It enveloped them in a defensive layer that the guards' bullets couldn't penetrate. They followed up with the Golden Call. Groundquakes shook the earth beneath them, while a hail of bullets rained down. But one member weaved through the gunfire with nimble movements, a flash of light erupting from his finger. His hidden class was revealed, a gunner who needed no weapon. His very fingers were his ammunition. A soldier shouted an alarm about the appearance of a classed individual. Before reinforcements could arrive, Ghost Shadow used her stealth ability. She dashed forward, weaving through the chaos at a speed the naked eye couldn't follow. She charged straight for Dongfang, leaping high, full of killing intent. The attack never landed. In the next moment, a figure appeared. He caught her midair and tossed her aside with brute force. The muscular man stepped forward. He warned Dongfang that one of the intruders was hiding under an invisibility cloak. She demanded they be captured alive, not killed, wanting them all to live. They would become permanent slaves who could provide endless lifespan for her son. The muscular man measured his chances. The survival rate was only 50-50. As he joined the battle, one of the defenders whispered about his arrival. The man saw their iron-head skill. It blocked bullets, and he realized they were robbers who lived off stolen lifespan. Their survival still surprised him, and he wondered if they had enough strength to make this fight interesting. He taunted them, but just then, the little Zhuan drone bug shot forward at 200 kilometers per hour, ramming into the man from behind. He sensed it instantly, ducking just before it reached him. In one swift motion, he caught it and snapped it between his legs. While still in the air, he fully extended his body and revealed that a barrier had enveloped the area. It was a barrier that captured every movement within it. His hidden class was Plague's Source. He lunged forward, the air around him fluctuating wildly. The robbers hastily erected an iron-walled defense. In desperation, he used a jet blast to propel himself backward, driving his heel straight into the other guy's skull and kicking him away. The gunner was ordered to open fire while the others shouted to hold the enemy back before he could reach them. A hail of bullets flew, but the man weaved through the air unscathed. The gunner taunted him. He mocked that jumping into the air to face him was a death wish, but the man responded with a small sonic bomb. The sound tore through the air, splitting flesh. Blood erupted from the gunner's ears and mouth. He fell lifeless to the ground. To the attacker, this outcome was expected. Someone of such a low level couldn't withstand a sound sharper than any blade. The remaining robber fled in fear, but was caught by the head mid-escape. Trembling, he begged for his life, but the man calmly reassured him that death was not his fate. Dongfang needed slaves, and this one was just enough to fill the quota, he added confidently. He also stated that the stealth user had already been dealt with by his insects. The captured man looked back in disbelief. He insisted they had no stealthy ally, his brothers were all dead. The person who got out of the car was just another lifespan seller, not one of them. At a ruin on the outskirts of Magic City, at the Leaning Tower of Magic, Ying arrived in stealth mode. He noticed no monsters guarded the entrance, which meant someone was already inside. He observed the massive three-dimensional maze inside the tower's vast library. It was said that a monster reigned here, once a princess cursed by the White Evil Dragon. As he explored, he realized the team ahead of him had looted everything clean. Then he recalled how to teleport to the top floor and took out a special book to activate the portal. Instantly, he was teleported to the top floor, where he saw a team fighting the Guardian, the desperate princess. It was hard to believe they'd made it this far with such high mortality rates and weak weapons. Then his eyes landed on a woman in the back, and he instantly realized this must be someone from Feki Heavy Industries. a group founded by Huang Huifan, who had converted all her company's assets into lifespan and hired her own employees to work for her in the game. Huifan was essentially a magician who could create portals. She could set up 2 gates at different points. This allowed team members to teleport back and forth. Her clever strategy was to place 1 gate at the revival point and the other near the monster. That way, anyone who died could revive and quickly return to the fight to reclaim their lost lifespan. This tactic was probably why her guild rose to become one of the top 20 guilds in Dacia in his past life. Now, facing a level 18 platinum-grade monster, Ying didn't think their strategy would work. The monster's power allowed it to absorb lifespan 100 times more effectively than regular monsters, and it can convert that lifespan into pure power. At this rate, the creature will evolve into the emerald rank and wipe out the entire guild. That's why Ying approached Huang to negotiate. He demanded thousands of years of lifespan and any dropped items for the assassin class. In return, he would kill the protector for them. Hu Fan immediately recognized him. He stressed again that they couldn't defeat this monster if they refused to hire him, so they should retreat immediately. His words sent her son into a rage, but his mother stepped in and stopped him. Her son didn't back down. So, he was attacked by Ying, who also destroyed the teleportation gate while he was at it. Huang demanded an explanation. She argued that punishing her son was understandable, but destroying the teleportation gate was not. Ying made his intentions clear. It was to prevent more people from flooding in to fight the monster. He knew that in just a few more moments, the monster would turn into an emerald rank and wipe out her guild. But an emerald rank monster would give him an even more generous reward. Just then, Yu Ying contacted him. She informed him about Dongfang and his location. He promised to meet her later at the White Bones Cemetery. He met her there and asked to know the enemy's class characteristics. She explained that he was a melee fighter with a farting skill, and on top of that, he could see through invisibility. That immediately made him realize something. His class originated from the source of the plague. He added that he must have a first-tier plague aura around him, which allowed him to sense her even while she was invisible. Typically, plague users possess insane regeneration abilities, making them nearly immortal. She asked if such a person had any weaknesses. He replied that while the plague greatly enhances the body, it also amplifies their desires, making them mentally weak. Additionally, he urged her to evolve her Netherworld Blade skill into the second-tier Netherworld Vengeful Spirit. This skill would allow her to create illusions, which are especially effective against those with weak minds. For her, this would be the way to break the stalemate. He made her understand that she needed to level up her class to be able to get her revenge. She was confused about the source of his information regarding her class, but he instead asked if she had ever explored her own characteristics. During their training, he encouraged her to keep her mind steady. She finally understood how he obtained his power, and decided to follow his path. Afterward, he suggested she train in the cemetery, where she could upgrade her skills quickly. However, the monsters here were elite level with triple the stats and health. Even so, with precise attacks aimed at their weak spots, she still had a chance to defeat them. She was completely astonished by his power. Before leaving, he told her she had to bet everything on the line, because that was the only path for her to get her revenge. As he left, she pondered for a moment, realizing that the word revenge also stirred the killing intent within him, just the same. Meanwhile, at the ruins of Jianghai City, Xiao He was exhausted after exploring the ruins. Soon after, she discovered a plum-like fruit and ate it. The fruit was not only delicious, but also gave her 50 experience points. There were more fruits lined up ahead, so out of greed, she followed the trail of fruit. Meanwhile, Xiao He received a call from An Yu, asking her to come to the corrupted coastal area. Because Nai Liang had been captured and they needed her help, she promised to assist, and upon checking her map, she realized she was already near the corrupted coast, and Yu promised to pick her up on the way. While eating the plums, she cursed Nai Liang for being an idiot. If it weren't for his father, no one would bother working with him. From the edge of a cliff, she spotted some fat creature below and wondered if it was a boss. Then, her gaze fell on Nai Liang lying nearby. Finally, she saw the boss. It was clearly the Soul Devourer, a level 20 emerald rank monster. She couldn't believe her eyes as it devoured other monsters, and not only that, it gruesomely kneaded their flesh into meatballs. Just then, An Yu arrived beside her and asked about the boss. They were both disgusted by its vile actions, but they breathed a sigh of relief that it hadn't touched any players yet. They decided to wait and observe. Still, a heavy worry weighed on them, whether they could actually take it down. An emerald rank monster, or if they should call for backup. Then, they noticed the monster's strange posture, and suddenly realized it was taking a dump. Xiao He was horrified when she realized that the plum-like fruit that she had been eating was actually its droppings. The very next moment, the boss noticed them and activated Whisper of the Gluttonous Old God. Because of the boss's skill, everyone suddenly felt unbearably hungry and began to devour the meatballs created by the monster. However, Xiao He wondered why she alone was unaffected by the compulsion. Then her eyes widened in horror as the boss swallowed Nai Liang. She now understood the Soul Devourer made players eat, until they fattened up, only to be devoured later. Immediately, she called Ying for help and explained the dire situation. Ying, who was searching for a bloodline monster, promised to come at once. By now, he had secured the keys to 3 other platinum-rank hidden lairs in Modu, but he knew he had to deal with this bloodline monster quickly before the Princess of Despair evolved. When he arrived at the location, Xiao He frantically explained that Meng and NU had been eaten. Then, they both witnessed the monster excrete, and from that foul-smelling blob of goo, Nai Liang emerged, which horrified her even more. However, Ying understood this monster perfectly. It was a servant of the gluttonous old god. Its skill forced players to eat uncontrollably, making them gorge themselves until they were fat enough to be eaten. The only way to resist its compulsion was to eat its droppings. He realized Xiao He must have already done so. She was just too embarrassed to admit it. She desperately begged him to save their friends immediately. He jumped down and shoved more of the monster's waste back into its mouth, causing it to vomit out Meng and Yu. Then, with a fluid motion, he unleashed an instant shadow slash. Slicing through the monster's hide, he finally activated his ultimate skill, Blood-Colored Blade, and in a single devastating blow, he dealt millions of points of damage. The Soul Devourer fell, making him the first person in history to solo an Emerald-rank monster. Everyone was shocked to hear this news, with one commenter saying that Ying wasn't even from Daxia, because his ancestors came from the Great Han Nation. Meanwhile, our guy had activated the Soul Devourer bloodline after defeating the boss. The bloodline is a system where players acquire the abilities of monsters after defeating them. He activated his bloodline, and with the Soul Devourer skill, he could absorb skills from his own class. This increased his attributes. Another skill was the Maw. Through it, he could summon a mouth that swallowed enemy projectiles, while also restoring his HP and reducing incoming damage. He used the Soul Devourer skill to increase his attributes. Then he noticed a bronze tier item drop, the Poison Blade. This skill could imbue weapons with poison. He used Soul Devour on the Poison Blade but only received 0.3 points of physical strength. This number was too low for his standards, and then he realized it could be evolved. So, he used 242 evolution points to upgrade the Poison Blade to Legendary tier. Thanks to that, his physical strength increased by 2 points. He felt satisfied with this skill, because with Soul Devour, his attributes would eventually increase by hundreds to thousands of times, compared to a normal player, making him unstoppable.